Hello there, and welcome to the Bitcoin Takeover podcast. This is season 16, episode 6. We are live with Super Testnet, and this
Hi,
episode
everybody.
is sponsored by Layer 2 Labs, Citrea, No One's, Huddling.ch, and SiteShift.ai. No joke, I'm going to ask you about Citrea.
Okay, great.
And
Uh,
the reason why
I'm
we
re-
decided to do this is that you recently put a listing on a dark web market. You're selling chocolates or cookies or something in exchange for Bitcoin on the Lightning Network. Is that correct?
I'm not selling them. I found someone who was selling them on a darknet market, and I was like, "Oh wow, there's a darknet market that accepts Lightning," and so I posted it. So yeah,
And
that
your
got some
claim is that
attention.
Lightning is more private than Monero. And
That
that's
is my
sort of
claim.
the reason why we decided to do this.
Yes, and thank you for having me on. It's an honor to be on your podcast, and I admire what you do.
The honor is on my side, sir. So let's start with this. What is private about the Lightning Network? You have sender privacy, you have receiver privacy, you have network level privacy, and you have amounts privacy. Which one of these does Lightning have?
Uh, four of it. It has aspects of all four. I think the one it's the worst at is amount privacy, and the ones and then is really good at the other ones.
Can we do a further analysis? Because as far as I know, Lightning has pretty good sender privacy, which is exactly what Bitcoin on-chain doesn't have. When you send Bitcoin on-chain, you can see how many coins the sender has in their UTXO. Unless you send from a
Mhm.
coin join, but that's a bit more complicated to pull out or pull
Yeah,
off. But in the case of Lightning, you get sender privacy, which is pretty good. When, humble brag, when I sold Bitcoin to buy my Lexus, I actually used the Lightning Network on Kraken because I was thinking
hmm
that I don't want their blockchain analysis, whatever, to flag my coins if I used coin joins in the past. And the fact that I sent from the Lightning Network gave me, much better both privacy and also it didn't let me deal with blockchain analysis. So that's pretty sweet about Lightning.
yeah.
But
One of the ways that it does that is by encrypting a lot of the information. So when your node picks a route to find to say I want to pay Kraken, you have to find a path along the Lightning Network that you're going to pay Bob, and Bob's going to pay Carol, and Carol's going to pay Dave, and Dave's going to pay Kraken. And that route, we use onion encryption, similar to Tor, to make it so that Bob only knows that someone on this side is paying someone on this side, but he doesn't know who. And then Carol only knows that someone on this side is paying someone on this side, and so forth, till you get all the way to Kraken, and they just know Dave. Dave forwarded this payment to us, but we don't know who the actual sender was. So it's really good at hiding the sender by these layers of encryption, similar to how the onion router does it.
yeah, that's a very good way to compare it with onion routing. I think that's also the source of inspiration for the routing design in Lightning. On the other hand, when you do send someone an invoice, they're going to be able to see what type of wallet you're using and a lot of stuff, including the amount that you're requesting. So it's not very private for the person sending out an invoice. Whereas in the case of Bitcoin on chain, if you send a new address that you generate from your wallet, there's gonna be no way for the sender to know that it's really your address or where it comes from.
I think that Lightning invoices have better privacy than Monero stealth addresses. Would you like me to tell you why?
Oh, that's a big claim. Go on.
Yeah. So in both a Monero stealth address and in a Lightning invoice, there's a pub key. But this pub key in Lightning is only used for communication. It's used for signing messages, but not for receiving money. And in Monero, the public key is only used to derive the actual public key that you're going to send the money to. But a consequence of this is that on Monero, the sender can see exactly what address that they sent the money to, like the one where the money ended up,
Mm-hmm.
because they derived that from the public key in the Monero address, or the public. I think they call it public address. In Lightning, it's different. You don't actually send money to the public key. That's just used for communication. You're sending it, in this encrypted route, and you don't actually see the last hop. You don't see what HTLC it's going into or how that HTLC gets resolved. You don't see what address is involved. So if someone is like subpoenaing you for information and they want to know what address did you send this money to, you can honestly say on Lightning, I don't even know. Even if I kept logs, I wouldn't have that information. Whereas with Monero, you know, a lot of the ways that they track this is they go to like morph token or fixed float, and they're like, what is the actual address that you sent the money to? Because the sender knows in Monero, and you just don't on Lightning.
Yeah, I do get this point that there's less information that gets stored on your wallet side, because that's what this is about. On Monero, you are able to see to whom you have sent the transactions. Maybe that's an outside observer who's watching the blockchain will not know, but if they get access to your wallet, they're going to be able to see your history of transactions. And also in the case of Monero, you can give up on the privacy. Especially, I know that in the Monero node wallet that you run on desktop, you can choose to make your transaction transparent and reveal the amounts or reveal some information. You can also export a history of your transactions if you want to reveal that to someone. So privacy is on by default in Monero, but your wallet knows what you're doing, and you also store that information. So if you really want to have good privacy, you have to dispose wallets and just move money around across different wallets. You're saying that Lightning does not store that information.
It's not just that it doesn't store it, you actually don't know. You don't know what the channel is that your recipient has with his counterparty. You don't know what channel that money is going into, and you don't know what HTLC it's going into. You're just saying, I want to go to this node. And if the node you selected has any channel with that person, they'll just pick whichever one they want to use. You as the sender don't get to see that information. So you have less information from a Lightning invoice about where the money actually went than you get from a Monero public address.
Right, but there's more to it because, for example, if you want to send large amounts, you don't get too much deniability in Lightning because there is not much liquidity. Last time I checked, it was 5,000 Bitcoin or something, which is the total amount of coins that are locked into this layer. If you're a whale or something, you're probably better off using Monero.
I'm not sure I'm not sure. I've not checked how many nodes have enough liquidity to forward, like, let's say a 2 Bitcoin payment for $200,000. But what I'm thinking is, if you did send $200,000 through the Lightning Network, I think that it would probably go through, and the routing nodes along the path would still have onion encryption that prevents them from knowing who the sender was, and they also have onion encryption preventing them from knowing who the recipient is. So yeah, is it really bad for to send a large amount over the Lightning Network? You might have to try several times to do it, but once you find a route, then the routing nodes along that path still don't know who the sender is or who the recipient is.
What about the amount? Because when you're opening the channel, and let's assume it's a 2 Bitcoin channel that you're opening with someone, that's pretty visible. It can be observed. You can see it on 1ml.com or something, one of these Lightning Network Explorers. I think also on mempool.space. I'm not sure if they have that feature. So it's clear that the liquidity went on the Lightning Network. But is it possible with Lightning transactions for an outside observer to know that 2 Bitcoins are being transferred?
No, it's not possible for an outside. Only the people on the route would know any information about the amount, because amounts aren't gossiped on the Lightning Network. They're only exchanged between the nodes that are along the route. And even there, this is one reason why I said the part that the Lightning Network gets it worst on is amount privacy. But even there, I think it does really good because, for one thing, it's not broadcast. Like in Lightning Network transactions, your transactions are not part of the gossip network. You're just the only people who know about your transaction are the people on the route. And secondly, we have what's it called? Multipath payments. And if you do a multipath payment, which is built into most wallets now, it splits up the amount into smaller chunks and then sends them along different paths to the recipient. And we do this on the Lightning Network. In fact, wallets have an incentive to do this because smaller amounts tend to go through more easily. So you get fewer payment failures if you split up the amount and send it over multiple paths. But that also means that any routing node who sees a payment doesn't know if the amount there is the full amount being paid or just a shard of the amount. So like in addition to not broadcasting the amounts, we also make it so that the routing nodes don't know the full amount. They only get a lower bound. They know he sent, if $50 flows through their routing node, the routing node knows at least $50 was sent, but it might be, 5 sets of 50 that he split up a $250 payment into 5 sets of 50. And you just don't know as a routing node if he did that.
Right. You have this concept in the Lightning Network of private channels. Are they really good for privacy, or what's the purpose of them?
I don't think they're really good for privacy. You can find, there are ways to find someone's private channel, or at least if they're not using Taproot, there's ways to find their private channel. If they're using Taproot, then it gets harder. And by the way, LND recently added Taproot channels. I think they did it last year, and a lot of the mobile wallets support it now, which is great. But what's the purpose, you asked? And the purpose is to make a distinction between nodes who are routing and nodes who are not. If you're a routing node, you advertise your you can anyway advertise your channels and say, you should connect to me. Look at all these different destinations I'm connected to. Here are my fee rates. And you're kind of advertising. And so they publish that information. If you're a user and you're on a smartphone, maybe you don't want to route. Probably you aren't able to, because like your phone's in your pocket most of the time and not sending messages. So you don't need to have your channels announced. You don't need to advertise yourself as offering a service, because you're not. So then they make these channels that aren't announced on the Gossip network. But that doesn't make them private. So in early Lightning, they called them private channels. And what's his name? Tony Giorgio pounded into everyone's head. You can still see them on the blockchain. They're not private. And he's right. They're just not announced on the Gossip network, but they're still on the blockchain, so you can see them.
Right. So what is their purpose more exactly? Because they are called private.
Some people call them private, but let me echo Tony Giorgio here and say
I
not
remember
private.
when I was using Run the Lightning, which is this wallet, and I was using it to manage channels on my LND node. It had this feature when I was opening a channel to tick a box that said "Open a private channel."
Well, it's a misnomer, and that someone should do a pull request and change it to an unannounced channel. The purpose is to say is to not say, here is my channel, you can route through me. Like, you're not advertising that service, so you don't make that announcement on the Gossip network. But that's the only difference, is they're not announced on the Gossip network. They're still visible on the blockchain, and you can still find them.
On the Lightning Network, which scenario is more private? Let's say that I open a channel with you and I only send to you, or is it more private if I open channels with more people and I have more routes?
There's less trust. Well, I don't know. That's the thing. If you just open a channel to me and then do all of your transactions directly with me, I still don't know if you're I still don't know who the sender is, because it might be you, or you might be routing a payment from someone who I can't see, from just some other user, and I don't know if you're doing that or not. I could make an assumption and say, well, he doesn't have public channels, so he's probably not a router, and therefore he probably is a sender. But not all routing nodes do have public channels. You can still route with private channel now I'm doing it with unannounced channels. So yeah, I don't know which one's more private. And I guess that's part of the point is because the Lightning Network discloses so little information to the recipient and to routing nodes, it's difficult to determine whether it's more private to use 0 routing nodes or to use many. Either way, the recipient can't tell.
Right, so on the Monero side, how would you describe that this works? When, let's say, Alice sends coins to Bob, what's happening there?
On Monero?
Yeah.
Yeah, when Alice constructs a transaction to send to Bob, she looks through the blockchain, and I want to say randomly, but it's not quite a random algorithm. She uses an algorithm to pick a set of decoys. And these are similar to how we do coin joins in Bitcoin, except it's non-interactive in Monero, which is awesome, by the way. I really like the Monero tech on non-interactive decoys. But you pick a bunch of people from the blockchain and you say, it's typically 16, or it's 15 plus the real plus you. you pick 15 people, and then you say, one of these people is sending the money in this transaction. I'm listing them all in my transaction as possible senders. And you create something called a ring signature. Ring signature takes a list of public keys and creates a signature such that you know one of the pub keys in that list signed it, but you don't know which one. And that's what Monero uses to sign their transactions. So you can see either Alice, Bob, Carol, or Dave, or however, of 16 people, one of them sent the money, but we don't know. So that's how Monero protects sender privacy. It does best on amount privacy, where it actually encrypts the information. So what I was just describing is not encryption, but obscurity, which is good. Like, obscurity is good, but in my opinion, encryption is better. So it doesn't encrypt the sender, but it does encrypt the amount. And it uses a really cool encryption standard that has a property called perfect blinding, which means even if they cracked the encryption algorithm, they still wouldn't know the amount encoded in a Monero transaction, which is great, with one exception: the fee. The fee is public in Monero transactions, the fee paid. And you might think, well, that doesn't matter, but it's used to fingerprint wallets and to identify exchanges and other, if you watch this, Chainalysis released a video, they didn't release it, leaked a video last year, in which they disclose how they trace Monero transactions, and they spend a considerable portion of it talking about how they use the fee to identify whether someone is an exchange, because they tend to use larger fees, or a regular user, because they tend to use the default fee, or they have agreements with certain exchanges so that they have to share information, and they use that information as well. But the fee tells them a lot about what kind of user is using Monero. And so it's not, in my opinion, it's not good that Monero publishes the fee. They should, in my opinion, or I like systems that encrypt the entire amount and not leave a little bit of it unencrypted. Lightning, by the way, encrypts the full amount, including the fees. So the routing nodes do not know the fee you paid. They only know the fee you paid them, but they don't know the fee you paid for the full transaction. And then lastly is the recipient. And in a Monero transaction, when you create a Monero transaction, you use a stealth address, which is what I was describing earlier. You get someone's public key, and you don't send money to that public key. You derive another public key from it, and you send money to that. And then with your transaction, you include information that the recipient can use to figure out how to spend from that public key. From the public key you actually send the money to. They also have a rule in Monero. I don't think it's a consensus rule, but it's a wallet. Everyone does this, where if two transactions get sent to the same address, the same they call them one-time addresses, the ones you derive from the public address. If two transactions get sent to that, the wallet will ignore the second one, and it'll only acknowledge the first transaction, which is great because that means no one ever reuses addresses on Monero, because their wallet wouldn't even show they received it, which I really like that, and I like to do stuff like that too. So thank you, Monero, for making good privacy tech.
That's interesting. I want to also explore this side of network level privacy, because in the case of Lightning, you have nodes which are associated with IP addresses. And in the case of Monero, you have Dandelion++, which was actually a proposal for Bitcoin to dissociate transactions from IP addresses and nodes. And you can also put Tor on top. In the case of Lightning, you can optionally use Tor for your node, but that only slows down your transactions, makes you less likely to route, and it only makes it useful for yourself in some cases, but can also lead to failed payments.
There are some downsides to using Tor, and I am glad to see, if you go to Clark Moody's Bitcoin dashboard, something like 70% of routing nodes on the Lightning Network use Tor anyway, which I think is wonderful. Some might say, well, no wonder payments fail if 70% of the routing nodes are using Tor, but that's the situation. I think that's largely because of Umbrels. I think people set up, they buy an Umbrel or a Start9 machine or one of these nodes in a box, and they default to, most of them default to running your node on Tor. Actually, one interesting thing, when you're setting up LND, it does not default to doing it on mainnet, or on ClearNet, I mean, to using IPv4 or IPv6. In fact, you have to choose. There's no default set. When you try to set up a routing node, you have to say in your configuration file whether you want it to be on Tor or on ClearNet, and specify that. And I really like that. It seems that most routing nodes choose to do it over Tor. Yeah, Dandelion is a great technology in Monero, and I don't know why Bitcoin wallets haven't adopted it, because we totally can. It's not even a consensus rule change. Your wallet can just start doing it, and then you have it, and we don't even have to worry about like writing the code because it's already out there. Monero wallets have it, so just copy paste, and that would be great. I don't know why no wallets are doing that. I forget what your question. Did I answer your question? I don't think I did.
Partially. In the case of the Lightning Network
level privacy.
Yeah. Is there any way to associate transactions with a certain IP address?
No, or at least not unless you're a routing node and you happen to know who the sender is. In the Lightning Network, you don't gossip your IP address or your Tor address unless you're a routing node. So I mentioned earlier that when you're setting up a routing node, you have to set it to be on mainnet or ClearNet. When you do that, you start advertising. You start saying, here are my channels, you should route through me, I'm connected to all these people. If you just set up a node, if you set up like Electrum or you set up LND or Phoenix or something, it's not going to tell people your IP address. It doesn't use gossip. Because it's not needed. You're not routing any transactions. You're not advertising that service. So you don't actually. So people like to say, a Lightning invoice doxes your IP address. It doesn't, unless you're a routing node. If you're a routing node, then it doxes your IP address. But if you're not, if you're just a user, then it doesn't. And so that's pretty cool. Another aspect of network level privacy is that on the Lightning Network, when you're sending a transaction, every interaction between you and the routes along the path is encrypted. So we use onion encryption. So I encrypt a layer for, I guess I start with the last guy. I encrypt a layer for him, and then I wrap that in a layer for the next hop back, and I wrap that in a layer for the next hop back. And so there's all these layers of encryption that make every single interaction encrypted on the Lightning Network. And other networks don't do this. So on Bitcoin, when I interact with my peers, it's not encrypted. The traffic is in plain text. And on Monero as well, when you interact with your peers, when you send transactions, you send them in plain text. So there is no peer-to-peer traffic encryption on Monero, and there is in Lightning. And I just thought I'd like to mention that.
Yeah. I guess in the case of Monero, it's much more difficult. So there is no condition that your node is a routing one or not. You have much better network level privacy by default thanks to Dandelion. You don't even have to use Tor, but if you add Tor on top, it's going to be much more private.
I think it's a really good idea to use Tor. In the Chainalysis video that I mentioned earlier, can we put the link to the Chainalysis video in the show notes? I'll send it to you.
Yeah, I think it was taken down a bunch of times, so it's hard to keep track of where that is. If you have it, that's pretty cool.
I have a link that has been working for the last 2 weeks or so. In that video, they go over how they do traffic analysis after the Dandelion upgrade was implemented. And they said all of our assumptions about traffic analysis get much weaker after for transactions that were broadcasted after 2020. However, there's one thing that is different here, or there's one thing to note, which is that wallets like Cake Wallet and Monero J don't do what a lot of Bitcoin wallets do, which is pretend to be a node and then use the peer-to-peer connection to broadcast your transactions. Most of them use something called remote procedure call, which means they ask some website.
RPC.
Yeah, RPC calls. And they ask some website and say, you do transactions for Monero, right? Here's the raw hex of my transaction. Please broadcast this to the network. And when you do that, you're not getting the protections of Dandelion, because that only applies at the peer-to-peer level and not at the remote procedure call level. So in the Chainalysis video, about a third of the transactions that they click on were sent by people who just were using a wallet that went to one of the servers owned by Chainalysis or partnered with Chainalysis and broadcasted it there. So yeah, Dandelion's great, but in order to do that, you have to run your own node, because wallets don't do it. They could each wallet could pretend to be a peer and then send the transactions over the peer-to-peer level, and then they would get the Dandelion protection, but they're not doing that. I don't know why. But yeah, if you want the Dandelion stuff, you have to run your own node or wait till a developer implements a wallet that does it on mobile. And you also, I think you should use Tor, because although Dandelion tries to protect your IP address, if a lot of the nodes are listening for these things, they could, with some probability, they could figure out. Or, I don't know. I don't want to say that. I wanted to say with some probability they could figure it out, but I'm not sure that's true. So I don't want to finish there. I will just say I think it's better if you use Tor. Although on the GitHub for Monero, if you enable the Tor option, the GitHub says it's not used for relaying transactions. It's only used for a couple of things, and one not, or it doesn't use them for relaying transactions, which is interesting. I don't know why they don't do that. You'd have to like use a separate Tor implementation than the one that's integrated into Monero if you wanted to actually relay transactions encrypted, because for some reason it doesn't do that, and I haven't read the rationale.
Last year, we have seen a lot of these eCash mints and federations that use eCash, which gives you much better privacy at the expense of control over your own keys or custody.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to have to trust some custodian that he's going to be honest, and you're going to be able to trade within, not trade, send and receive inside of that federation with pretty good privacy. Would you say that it's a net benefit for privacy, and how does that privacy of eCash compare to that of Monero?
It depends whether it's sometimes a benefit. So I personally don't like to put a significant amount of money on custodial solutions. I don't mind having a couple bucks on there, but when I get to about $20 worth of value, and then I'm like, I don't want to have that money on a custodian. I want to withdraw it to my own self-custody. Sometimes I call this candy bar money. I don't care if my candy bar money is custodied. So I will do that for like Noster's apps or something. But yeah, for me, it's more important that I take control of the custody of my coins whenever it's a significant amount of money. But you didn't ask about whether I prefer custody. You asked what are the privacy advantages of doing this. And the privacy advantage of using an eCash mint is similar to the privacy advantage of using something like Tornado Cash on Monero or Tornado Cash on Ethereum, where the pool that has aggregated all the user funds does not disclose when a payment is made. It does not disclose who in the group made the payment. You only know it was somebody in this pool. Similar with an eCash mint, if the eCash mint sends out a payment to somewhere, you don't know, and even the mint operator doesn't know which member of the mint sent the money. It's just you just know it's somebody in that group sent the money. So that's a privacy advantage, and depending on the size of the mint and how many users it has, it might be bigger than the anonymity set that you currently get with Monero, because Monero's current rig signature size is 16. You have 16 people who are in your transaction with you.
Yeah, it's your transaction plus 15 decoys, right?
Yeah, well, your TXO plus 16 decoys, 15 decoys. But with a mint, it depends on how many people there are, and yeah, I don't know how many users mints have. So yeah, I don't know what the benefit you get there is. It's hard to say. I suspect that the bigger mints, or the ones with a lot of liquidity on them, probably have more than 15 users, and so then you'd be getting a bigger anonymity set. But I don't know, because they don't disclose. At least I don't think they disclose how many people are using them. I don't even know if they know how many people are using them. Yeah, because each they could count the number of deposits, but each deposit could, like, some of the deposits are going to be by the same user, so they wouldn't even know how many users they have.
Yeah, I'm aware that you've had a debate with Luke Parker, who is right now working on full chain membership proofs on Monero, and that one is going to increase the anonymity set to be correspondent to basically the whole chain. It will not be only 16 transactions in that ring. It will be the whole chain.
I told him that he should call it "Oops All Decoys," because there's that cereal, the Captain Crunch cereal, where it's "Oops All Berries" instead of having the golden corn pieces. I was like, you should call it "Oops All Decoys." That would be a much catchier name. I don't know. I think it sounds like a wonderful piece of technology. And Luke Parker, who is smarter than me and implemented it, or I don't think he implemented it, or I think he made like a prototype or something. He seems to be really confident that it does what it says, and it makes it so that you can't tell which member of the Monero pub key set spent this money. If that's true, that's great. Like, I would love to reanalyze this debate and see which has better privacy after full chain membership proofs get implemented. I haven't seen any criticism of it. I haven't heard it. Intuitively, it sounds like a great thing. So I look forward to seeing how it, once it's developed and tried it out on testnet and then on mainnet and more eyes are on it. I would love to see. I would love to learn more about full chain membership proofs. It sounds awesome.
Once it's tried on testnet, it's gonna be tried on Super Testnet.
If maybe by then I'll have a Monero clone that you could try it on. I do have my own Bitcoin testnet that you can try Bitcoin apps on, but I don't have a Monero one. Well, I doubt I will, because I just find working on Bitcoin more interesting. And one thing I thought of when I was at the gym today is that the idea of full chain membership proofs is to make it so that you can't distinguish whether the sender is, which of the Monero users the sender is. And I tried to wonder, is there another way to accomplish that? Because we don't have zero knowledge, we don't have the same zero knowledge proof technology in Bitcoin that you guys have in Monero, or that the Monero people have in Monero, but we do have some things. And I tried to think, what would we do to make it so that you couldn't distinguish whether the sender is, who the sender is? And what I thought of was, what I keep coming back to is the Lightning Network. In the Lightning Network, we encrypt the sender. And so any routing node on the route, he just sees an encrypted blob, so he doesn't know who the sender is. And that encrypted blob could have been made by anyone who has a Lightning wallet. So do encrypted senders count as full chain membership proofs? I imagine Luke Parker swinging an axe right now and saying, definitely not, it's totally different. But yeah, Luke, do a post and tell us why. Why is that different? I'd love to learn.
You mentioned zero knowledge proofs. I also want to ask you why you compare Lightning with Monero and not with Zcash, because that one has much more advanced cryptography. It already has what Monero is trying to accomplish with full chain membership proofs. It just has fewer users.
Maybe my next post will be comparing Zcash to Monero, but maybe I don't know why I chose to go with Monero in my comparison post rather than Zcash, but it might have a lot to do with the fact it's like subconsciously I was like, well, it's more useful to win over the Monero users because there's more of them than there are Zcash users. I don't know. I didn't think about Zcash when I made the post.
Yeah, I guess you also wanted to dunk on the fact that most of the transactions on dark web markets are being made with Monero, and you wanted to prove that Lightning can also be used for that. And you can provide a couple of links to attest that there are some listings on some dark web markets of non-illegal stuff that's being sold for Bitcoin using the Lightning Network. Why do you think there are not more of these listings? What do you think is the roadblock?
I suspect it is the barrier to entry for the Lightning Network. In order to set up a Monero node, you don't even need a Monero node. In order to set up a Monero wallet, you just download a wallet and you're off and running. And so I think that makes it really a lot easier on darknet market developers. Whereas for Lightning, there's an extra step. You have to download a wallet and you have to set up channels. So I suspect it's that extra step. And then, then on users also have those two steps. Every user not only has to, it might be fine for a developer team to say, okay, we downloaded a wallet and then we set up a channel that took us an afternoon. But if each of your users has to spend an afternoon setting up their wallet in order to pay you, maybe that's the reason. I wonder if the reason why darknet markets, more of them use Monero, or I don't even know if that's true. I wonder if more darknet markets would use Lightning if it was as easy to set up for both users and developers as Monero is. So that's one of the things that I work on, is making it easier to use the Lightning Network.
If you look at XMR Bazaar, which is what I used, and it's not a darknet market, it's just a market. It has lots of listings, and a lot of them are from Europe and US. You find a lot of crap. I bought a Nintendo 64 using that. I thought it was super cool that I could do that. And I felt a bit sorry that there's not a Bitcoin equivalent that has lots of listings, Because there was Open Bazaar, there was Plebin at one point, which was something where you could sell your stuff. It was sort of like eBay. But I'm not aware of something that has a lot of listings nowadays.
I will send you a link. The one that I found that I think they were like chocolates with Monero. I almost said Monero. Chocolates with marijuana in them. That's the link I just sent you is the darknet market I found where people were doing that, and it looks to me like it has a lot of listings. So check that one out. And all of those listings support the Lightning Network.
Yeah, let me open the Tor browser and check it out. In the meantime, while this loads, because Tor is slow, I gotta tell you about SideShift, which is this place where you can trade the various shitcoins that you can get from airdrops or whatever. If someone sends you something, don't say no, just take it from them and swap it for the kind of free market money that you actually want to hold on SideShift. They have a lot of liquidity, they have pretty low fees. If someone gives you for your birthday some Trump tokens from the meme coin because they take pride in owning that, you don't have to tell them what you really think. You can just accept that and swap it for Bitcoin on SideShift. You can actually do that. Or if someone offers to pay you in USDT, it's a bull market, man. Don't hold on to stable coins. I mean, not financial advice, but you're probably better off buying Bitcoin with that. So check out sideshift.ai. And also, I gotta ask you about Layer 2 Labs and drivechains because people from their Telegram chat are watching right now and they want to know what's your latest opinion of what Pol is doing with all of that, what's it called? Core Untouched soft fork?
Yeah, the Core Untouched soft fork. I like it. So my take is that Paul has observed that one of the reasons why miners haven't activated BIP300 yet, I suspect, and I think he suspects too, is because they don't want to use Paul's his fork of Bitcoin Core, because then it probably wouldn't get as good and as often of security updates as Bitcoin Core does. And so I think miners basically are just like, we just want to use whatever everyone else is using, and whatever one gets frequent security updates and has a lot of developer focus. And that's just not Paul's software. It's him and his team working on it, and no one else, at least as far as I'm aware. So I think he came up with this idea of saying, well, what if we could make it so that you could implement drive chains without touching Bitcoin Core? And I think that's a brilliant idea. So what he does is he makes it so that if the miner runs this this software to the side, this Core Untouched software, they will reject transactions that violate the BIP300 rules and from the mempool, and they will invalidate blocks that don't follow the BIP300 rules. By just calling the invalidate block command and by having a new mempool filtering policy. And by doing that, you make it so that you don't have to change Bitcoin Core. You can still, as a miner, run Bitcoin Core. You can still get the frequent security updates. You can still get all this good stuff that Bitcoin Core has, but you can also activate drive chains on the side. And I think that's great. I hope it's a success. And let's get drive chains happening. That'd be great.
Yeah. Last year, I think you came up, or maybe it wasn't you, but I did see this from you that you can basically do drive chains with covenants. It's not ideal. You're removing some of the protections that are provided to users, but miners can do that.
Miners, the nice thing about soft forks is, a nice thing about soft forks is that every one we've ever done, with some caveats around SegWit, was done by miners. Like miners implemented, or not, they didn't implement the code. Miners chose to run the code and reject the blocks that didn't follow the new rules. After 90% of them or so signaled that they were ready to do it. And I think they could do that with BIP300. They could just start signaling we're gonna start invalidating blocks after block whatever that don't follow the new BIP300 rules. And they could do that even if without getting permission from anyone. I just think what I talked about earlier, they just don't want to run separate software and then not have frequent updates and good developer teams on them. I forget. I meandered from your question. Could you do them with covenants? Probably. You probably can do them with covenants. I suspect you can probably do drive chains without covenants, as long as miners are willing to enforce a variable length time lock, which I think you could do variable length time locks using using like a counter. I think you could use a counter and you increment it by like revealing hashes and stuff like we do in BitVM. I think there's probably a way to do drive chains without a soft fork at all, but it still requires miners to run special software, and so somebody has to write it and then convince them to do it. And Paul's taking on that fight. Yeah, you could probably do them with covenants. Most things are possible if you think about it for a really long time and have smart people work on it. But yeah, Paul is one of the smart people and he's working on it. So thank you, Paul.
What do you think about ossification? Do you think it's going to happen if we get that strategic reserve from the US?
I think it already happened. I don't think Bitcoin will ever see a soft fork again or a hard fork. And I think it's ossified. If you want my opinion on ossification, I think it sucks. Ossification means you stop fixing problems, and that seems to be what's happened in Bitcoin. So I don't like that, and I would like to see more. I would like to see de-ossification and more fixes and improvements in the consensus rules.
Yeah, that's a very nice answer, but someone who is on the side of ossification and possibly a spook is going to say, yeah, you're just trying to get paid because you have solutions for problems that they don't consider actually exist. And they'll say Bitcoin is already perfect and you're just a dev who's trying to get a paycheck.
Well, they're not wrong about the latter. I am trying to get a paycheck, so you caught me. I don't think there's anything wrong with trying to get a paycheck, but I also don't think there's no such thing as perfection in software. I don't think it's attainable, and so anyone who says Bitcoin is perfect, I think they're wrong. I think there's things we can do to fix it.
What do you think about these ZK-rollups? This podcast is also sponsored by Citrea, and they are doing the equivalent of optimism on Ethereum with their ZK rollup, which you're going to argue that is not a true ZK rollup because it doesn't use BitVM. I think I've heard you argue that before.
Well, you can have a true rollup. I mean, none of the Ethereum rollups use BitVM either, so you don't have to use BitVM to be a true rollup. I don't remember my thoughts on Citrea's blockchain thing. I remember having thoughts about it, but I don't remember what they are. I do remember thinking Citrea is a scam. So I could rail about that for a little bit if you want. But
sure. I also got Liam Egan to talk about it, and he said, it's actually honest as long as it doesn't claim to be what it's not. And of course, it's not everything that you expect it to be yet, but maybe if we get a covenant, it's going to be much better.
Yeah, I have very little recollection of. I haven't thought about them in probably 6 months, and I don't remember what my thoughts were. So I just remember having a negative opinion about them, but I don't remember why.
But you did concede at one point, and you said, Orkun is not a scammer or something.
I did. Yeah. So I had a podcast with the guy from Orkun where I laid out my reasons why I think they're a scam. And mostly it had to do with their website saying that they did things that they hadn't done, and saying they were the first to do things they were not the first to do. And he very carefully showed me that if you parsed the sentences just right, they didn't say those things. And the reason I'm being vague here is because I don't remember the details anymore. It was a long time ago, and I haven't thought about it since. After that event, Robin Linus contacted me, and he gave me additional reasons to think they're a scam. And I don't know if I was fully persuaded, or I don't have a good feeling about Citrea. And I don't remember what his reasons were, and I also don't remember what my reasons were. I do remember thinking that he answered my reasons sufficiently, but I still don't have a good opinion of them, and that's about as much as I can remember. So I apologize for it. I didn't know we were going to talk about Citrea, otherwise I would have gathered my thoughts more.
No, it's all good. What they're trying to do, I think, is pretty interesting because they want to bring these DeFi applications to Bitcoin. They want to be a layer where you can put your Bitcoin as collateral to issue stable coins and basically get a loan in the style of Celsius or BlockFi without the company, without the middleman.
So I remember part of it now. one of the things that they claimed in their white paper, or not their white paper, but on their website, and when I declared them a scam, one of the things they claimed was, we have executed the first zero knowledge proof rollup on Bitcoin, or we have like launched the first zero knowledge proof rollup on Bitcoin. And all they had done at the time was made one transaction, and this transaction, but it didn't contain, it contained like a proof that one block existed of another blockchain. And I said, like, this, what they made, they made the blockchain using like Ethereum software, EVM software. They created a zero knowledge proof. They validated the zero knowledge proof off of Bitcoin, and then it just included on Bitcoin like the text of the it's valid or something like that. And I remember saying at the time, this is not launching a zero knowledge proof rollup on Bitcoin. Your website says it is, but it's not. And I believe Orkin's answer to that was, how many blocks do you need to count as a blockchain? And I had to concede only one. He was like, well, we did one block and we showed that it worked on Bitcoin, so that counts.
So it's semantics at this point.
Well, but I don't. Yeah, technically, I guess you could say they did what they technically said, but it just the way it's worded makes it sound like you can use it, and it's more like they did something that you could do at a hackathon or something. Like you could have validated a zero knowledge proof off of Bitcoin on a weekend, and then published the proof on Bitcoin, and done that for a hackathon project, and then they've like raised millions of dollars off of this stuff. And I was just like, this is not a usable product. This is just like look that we know how zero knowledge proofs work. And so I was not that part of it. I thought they were raising money off of essentially a lie. But he said, look, if you look very carefully, we only claim to do a blockchain, and a blockchain only requires one block. And there was this whole, I don't have good feelings about Citrea, but that is as much clarity as you're going to get on it, because my memories on the subject are very vague.
No, it's fine. I also remember Robin Linus's objections. He was unhappy that they did not accomplish too much and they raised a lot of money. I think this was his concern. Maybe he was a bit jealous, because I think Robin did a pretty good job. He could have raised a lot of money, but he chose to do a PhD instead and push the research further. I respect that.
Yeah, I think it might be jealousy, and that might be what's motivating me too. I might have been sitting there, and in my subconscious little lizard mind, it was saying, I could have made a zero knowledge proof off of Bitcoin and then posted it on Bitcoin and raised $1 million, but that's like unethical, and so I wouldn't do that. But they did it, and so then I got mad at them. But maybe it's also just jealousy. I'm like, I should have gotten $1 million or something like that.
It was more than that.
Yeah, well. Still, the principle is, I don't.
We're still poor. It's fine.
Yeah,
it's fine. There are some comments in the chat, and I feel sorry for ignoring this. I did put on the screen for a little while Shopstr, and this one has some listings, and we're gonna talk about that. But before that, let's get to the comments in the chat, because I think some of them are interesting, and I don't want these guys to go away. I don't want them to feel like they're getting ignored. So there is Max Wonderland, who said, "Good evening, gentlemen. With Lightning Network, you can see them on YouTube if you want, and if you want to read along myself. With Lightning Network, one of the problems is most people use custodial Lightning, which defeats the whole purpose and creates big players. That gets a lot of get a lot of information about the funds in the network moving around. By the way, the stream is pretty laggy with little cutoffs from the sound. I don't know if that's only me. I don't know. Also, transactions through Lightning can fail. Also, opening channels is very expensive. One of the reasons why most people seem to use custodial. Yes, ring signatures are the weakest link at the moment in XMR, but that gets fixed soon with full chain membership proofs. I think we went through this. Sorry, but what is he talking about? Well, it's always send a transaction to a node. It's either your own node or someone else, like Cake. So every transaction is secured by Dandelion. This is his claim about our talk about network level privacy. And he also says Chainalysis runs own nodes and proxies disguised as valid nodes. That's how they are able to link transactions to IPs of the real sender.
Yeah, I agree with the last sentence. That is one of the ways that they do it. But but after Dandelion came into effect, you need to surround the node and know that he have some kind of a confidence he doesn't have any other connections to any other nodes. That's like a Sybil attack in order to get around Dandelion. But the other thing they do is, you said every node either talks, or every wallet either talks to its own node or to someone else's node, and therefore they're all protected by Dandelion. Not if it's a Chainalysis node. If you connect directly to a Chainalysis node, and not through the peer-to-peer network, but through their RPC call, give them the raw hex of your transaction, as a lot of these wallets do, you're not getting the protections of Dandelion, because they know then you're not using the peer-to-peer network. You're using effectively a website, or a web server somewhere to communicate, and so you're not getting the protections of Dandelion. Dandelion is only run by nodes, and it's not run by these wallet programs who don't accept incoming. They don't accept inbound connections. They don't even have a static IP address or onion address. They're off most of the times. They don't route. They don't relay transactions, and if that's the one connecting to the RPC call, then they have very high confidence that it's the actual sender and not some Dandelion node. So yeah, that's just so I disagree with the sentence where you said it either connects to your own node or someone else's node. Well, I don't disagree with that, but it misses the point, which is that there's two ways to connect to a node: either the peer-to-peer way, where you either are a peer or pretend to be a peer, or there's the RPC way, and that way leaks a lot of information. So I don't think wallets should do that, and I don't think they need to. I think wallets can implement the part of the peer-to-peer protocol necessary to look like a Dandelion, to look like something that supports Dandelion, and I just don't think they have.
There's also another comment by Inigo Arehula, I think. I hope I'm not mispronouncing. And he or she says LSP plus KYC will remove all the privacy for most people on the Lightning Network. LSP meaning Lightning Service Provider, for those who don't know.
Yeah, I don't think that's true either. There's two groups of people who use LSPs. There's users and there's routing nodes. And the LSP can't distinguish whether you're just a regular end user or you're a routing node. So if you are sending a transaction and you're using an LSP, they don't know if you're the sender or if you're a routing node, and that is really good for your privacy because they don't know who the sender is. Someone mentioned earlier, everybody's using custodians on the Lightning Network. Well, I don't think everyone is. I don't think everyone's using custodians on the Lightning Network. Those who choose to do so are compromising their privacy, because the sender of the transaction knows who the sender is and who the amount is, and what the amount is. They don't know they don't know what address is receiving the transaction, which is a good thing. That is, in my opinion, better than what Monero offers. But they still know who the sender is and who the amount is. So if you're using a custodian, you're not getting good privacy from that custodian. And I recommend not doing that anymore if you're looking for good. Well, I was about to say don't do that if you're looking for good privacy. What I should say is you should look for good privacy, and therefore you should not use a custodian, because then you're only getting recipient privacy. You're of the three categories: sender privacy, amount privacy, and recipient privacy. You're only getting recipient privacy then, and it's better if you get all three by running your own node or by using one of these phone wallets.
I have this phone wallet, it's Phoenix, and right now it's connecting to Tor and then a Lightning peer and an Electrum server. And it's also uploading payments to a cloud. I'm not sure exactly which cloud, if it's my account or somebody else's, or if it's encrypted. But is this really private? I connect to Tor first, then there is a Lightning peer, which I'm not sure if it's random or it's a predetermined one, and an Electrum server, which likewise I'm not sure if it's randomized.
Looking at that, I would say when you send a transaction using the setup you have there, you get good receiver privacy because Lightning has better receiver privacy than Monero does. You have no amount privacy because even though you're constructing the transaction that you're sending across the Lightning Network, the way that Phoenix in particular works, you send your Lightning transaction to Phoenix, the entire thing. You don't do shards. Like a node does. You send the entire thing to Phoenix, and then you say, please find a route to the recipient's node. So you're not getting any amount privacy there. They know that you're not using shards because they've designed the wallets that you don't use shards. I'll take this opportunity to say, Phoenix, you should implement multipath payments in like constructed by the sender. That would be good because that would protect more of the amount information. And then they don't know if you're using Tor consistently on Phoenix, then I don't think they know your IP address, which is good for your sender privacy. I imagine, however, that even if you are using Tor, there's probably fingerprinting that they can do on your wallet. I don't know enough about how operating systems, if they have other ways of getting information to the provider of an app other than the network connection used inside the app. I imagine there's probably a backdoor that like Android or iOS can use to send information about you, even if you're using Tor inside the app, because the rest of your phone's not using Tor and your phone still knows you're using Phoenix. So I imagine there's a backdoor way for them to find out who you are as the sender of that wallet, even when you're using Tor. And so you'd only get receiver privacy if that's true. If they've designed the wallet in such a way that they don't have information about you if you're using Tor, then you'd also have good sender privacy. So yes on receiver privacy, zero amount privacy. I don't know on sender privacy.
On the Monero side, the equivalent is the view key, right? And this is their big talk. Just like there's talk about the XPub in the case of Bitcoin, Monero people talk about the view key.
Okay. I don't. Do you want me to talk about my thoughts on view keys?
Well, what I want you to tell me is what can someone know by storing your view key? And what types of wallets do that?
I don't know which types of wallets do that. A well-designed wallet would not disclose your view key to your wallet provider or to anyone. It would keep it only visible to you. If someone has your view key, they can view all incoming transactions and view the amounts and because Monero doesn't encrypt the sender, you'd also get the list of 16 possible senders, but it wouldn't say which one was the real one. So you just know the amounts and you'd know the recipient, and you'd still get decent sender privacy on even if someone has your view key on Monero.
So basically, having someone's view key turns Monero into Bitcoin.
I think there's a caveat there. I believe there is some information. I forget what it is. I was looking up view keys once, and I was really surprised to find out that they don't tell you everything. There's some piece of information that it's probably the sender. It's probably just that they don't get the sender information. So no, it doesn't turn it into Bitcoin, because in Bitcoin, unless you're using a coin join and you're using the base layer, you do get the sender every time. Whereas with and also there's the caveats, but on Monero you don't. So it doesn't turn it. So even if someone has your view key, it's still better than Bitcoin base layer for privacy.
I appreciate the honesty, the way that you're breaking down these. I really appreciate the nuances. There's also Inigo in the chat who says, I see Lightning as something that has potential to be private, theoretically, but with real-world limitations, I really do not see how it can be achieved. I don't know what real-world limitations means.
Well, I think if I wanted to say a similar sentence, I would say there's no plug-and-play solution for privacy on the Lightning Network. If you want to set up a Lightning Network node and get decent privacy out of it, or if you want to use Lightning rather and get decent privacy out of it, you have to do things like download a node, set it up, configure it to use Tor, open channels, and manage your liquidity. And that's like 5 things. And then I think you'd have decent privacy in that case, as long as you didn't make any mistakes, like accidentally forgetting to use Tor one time and then you just leak everything. And I think what he said was, because of real world limitations, it's impossible to get good privacy on Lightning. I don't think it's impossible, and I don't think those are the 5 things that you have to watch for, and I don't think it's an insurmountable task. So you can do it. You can have a really good privacy on your Lightning node. Some Monero people that I argue with online say it's different with Monero you can get really good privacy on Monero by just, downloading Cake Wallet or downloading Monero J. I don't think it's true. I don't think you get decent privacy. I don't think you get as good of privacy as you get by setting it up on the Lightning Network. In order to get decent privacy on Monero, I think you have to run your own node, because otherwise you're making remote procedure calls and people can find out the IP address of the sender. And you have to use Tor. I think you have to use Tor in order to use Monero privately, because although Dandelion helps, it doesn't protect you if all the nodes you're connected to are Sybils, or even if most of them are Sybils. And we know from the videos released by Chainalysis and CipherTrace that they are both running, that Chainalysis companies are running nodes and gathering IP addresses from users. They show it in their video. So in order to prevent that, in order to prevent them from getting your IP address, it's important that you use your own nodes, you're not using RPC calls, and you use it over Tor, so that even if they are Sybiling you, they don't get your real IP address, they only get your Tor address. So that's two things. Like on Monero, in order to have decent privacy, you have to run your own node and you have to use Tor. And as long as you're going through the trouble of doing that setup, why not do the Lightning setup and get better privacy? Like if you need serious privacy, Lightning offers it in a better way than Monero does. Oh, and like with Lightning, you also have to make sure you never make a mistake. Like if you accidentally forget to do it on Tor sometime, that might be the time that they get you. So yeah, it's just, you have to be constant and vigilant about your privacy stuff. And I don't think there's a plug and play solution for that.
Wait, who is they?
who did I?
You say that's where they get you.
Oh, the Chainalysis. That's where Chainalysis gets you.
Okay, so that's the they.
Yeah, they is Chainalysis and CipherTrace and other analytics companies.
I'm going to put this article on the screen. It's the lowest hanging fruit, right? It's this article published in 2021 that's titled Chainalysis launches support for Lightning Network as layer 2 payment protocols gain popularity. And my question for you is, what can they know and what can they see? What does this support really mean?
Yeah, if you read the article, they tell you what they're doing in there, and they're offering something called man, can you send me the link in here so I can look it up? They say exactly what they know about this.
Can I send it to you on Telegram?
Yes.
Do you have it for desktop? Because I don't want to mess up what's on the screen. So super. I did that a couple of times during this stream. I apologize. Send.
Thank you. I see the link.
For people watching, I put this on the screen and we can basically read together.
So there's what is the Lightning Network section? There is the how popular is it section. Okay, so what they offer is a transaction monitoring solution for the Lightning Network, specifically Chainalysis KYT. They will be able to use KYT to monitor their Lightning Network transactions, screen for risky activity, and gain valuable insights. So if you look up this term, Chainalysis KYT, they define what that is on other parts of their website, and it's specifically OFAC compliance. So whenever a exchange is sending money to a user, you're withdrawing your money from an exchange, they have to take the address you give and check whether that address is on the OFAC sanctioned list. And they call this product, whereby you can send them the address and they will check if it's on the OFAC list for you. They call that Chainalysis KYT. So what they can do with the Lightning Network is take the invoice that the person wants to withdraw with, and get the pub key from it and check if that pub key is on the OFAC list. Also important to note, these public keys don't receive money. They're only on they're only used for communication. So it's even a silly thing that they do this. But yeah, that's what they can do. It's not tracing the transaction. They're just checking if the pub key listed in the node in the Lightning invoice that you give them is on the OFAC list or not. It's a pass fail. So that's what they say. That's why they need to say that the exchange is able to monitor their transactions, not the user's transactions. They don't know where the funds are coming from on the Lightning Network. They aren't able to trace Lightning payments and don't claim to be able to. They can only give a pass fail when the exchange is sending out a transaction to a Lightning invoice and say, is the pub key listed in this invoice on the OFAC list? So that's what they're doing.
Yeah, I think it was useful to ask because I guess someone from the chat is going to ask this anyway and
Now,
put the link and say, gotcha,
yes,
Chainalysis is on this, so they
but I
must know
have a
much
gotcha.
more than you're saying.
I have a gotcha, which is if you go the reverse direction and say, what does Chainalysis know about Monero? In the video that I mentioned earlier and that we're going to put in the show notes, actually, I will send you the link right now so that I don't forget. In this video, they specifically say at the end, you should not use our tool on your own. You should hire us. You should hire us to run the tool for you. We will do the Monero tracing for you, and we will find out where the funds came from and where they were sent. So here's a link to the video. It's in the last 30 seconds that he does this in case you want to play it. But Monero or Chainalysis actively advertises that they have a Monero tracing tool that can identify the source of funds and where they flow on the network. They don't offer that for the Lightning Network. They just say we only offer Chainalysis KYT, and that's know your transaction, not know your customer's transaction.
Great, thank you so much.
Is this person you're sending to, is their pub key on the OFAC list or not? That's not tracing the transaction.
Yeah, I guess I'm going to put this in the description. Everyone can watch this. And everyone should watch this because you get to understand how they operate. I guess the reason why they wanted this to get removed and they did not want this to be publicly available and someone leaked it is that it reveals the way that they approach it and the way that they think about it. It's sort of a paper tiger in some regards. Like, I think it was overblown when it came out. People said, they know how to de-anonymize Monero transactions. But there's always this caveat of the user input error when they're sending a transaction and they're using the wrong tool or they're making some mistakes.
Yeah, so what I find really interesting from about like 30 minutes onward, he shows their block explorer. He shows the block explorer that they use. It's like a custom Monero block explorer they've made with information gathered from like Fixed Float and Morph Token and Change Now and other exchanges that cooperate with Chainalysis. They give them information about their transactions, and then they can filter those out when they're used as decoys. They can say, they used a transaction that we know came from Change Now as a decoy, and so we can ask Change Now, did you make this transaction? And if they say no, then we know that's a decoy, and they can eliminate it. So they have all this information that's like off-chain data that they use to eliminate decoys from the Monero transactions. But using that data, it's incredible how much information they get. They go clicking around and they're like, okay, so the guy starts at this transaction, started at, I think it was Morph Token. The Morph Token sent it to his Monero address. We can identify the change that went back to Morph Token because they told us this is our address. We can identify the real recipient right here. Then we watch for him to show up in the next transaction. So he clicks the address and it shows up in the list of all the transactions that it's been seen in on Monero. And he's like, okay, so we can see from here, it showed up as a decoy and all these things, but they were able to identify that it was a decoy using their off-chain information. And he's like, okay, so here's the real transaction where he actually sent it. And he sent it into, and he goes through a list. It's like, he sent it to this place, or he sent some of it to this place, and then this is the change. And he keeps clicking through the change. Eventually, the person sent it to a wallet, I assume a phone wallet. And the reason I assume that is because the last transaction that he shows in this video is one that used a remote procedure call. It used a remote procedure call, and the guy wasn't using a VPN to contact a Chainalysis node, and he sent it to, I think it was a merchant. He sent money to some merchant, probably like Bitrefill, or I don't know if they take Monero, some merchant that does Monero things. And he said, okay, so he sent the money to this merchant, and we were able to trace the transaction from Morph Token all the way to here. But when he made this transaction, he used the remote procedure call, and he didn't use a VPN. So we knew his IP address, and we could trace that all the way back to where he got the money from. So where he bought the Monero. So it's really impressive. Like, they actually do a full trace of a transaction, showing all the steps they do and how they eliminate the decoys. Like people will say it's overblown. They can't really trace Monero. But if you watch the video, they trace Monero. Like, that's what they do. And then he advertised, like, so if you want to do this, don't just buy our block explorer. Hire us, because we know we're the experts. We have all the off-chain data, and we know how to actually do it. So yeah, they can and do and advertise that they trace Monero. but they don't do it for Lightning. They don't even advertise that they can trace Lightning.
Yeah, that's interesting. But to me, it sounds a bit like the claims that they were making with Wasabi or Samurai coin joins, right? When it was mostly an address reuse that was the fault of the user, or sending to, buying coins from exchanges, coin joining, and then sending to another exchange and then saying, we can actually de-anonymize this. But they don't look at the part that actually adds privacy. They just look at the outputs and see where they go.
The nice thing is that if the guy was using the Lightning Network instead of Monero, they wouldn't have a blockchain to look at to start with, because the transactions are not published on the Lightning Network. So in order to get a transaction graph, they would have to subpoena every Lightning node that might have been in the route of the guy who they're trying to find out about, and say, you have to give us every information about every IP address that connected to you.
Great,
if
thank
the
you
guy's
so much.
using Tor or a VPN, then just like with Monero, they wouldn't get any information from about that. But then the next thing is they don't see the sender. So even if they get all of the logs from the routing nodes, even if they were able to subpoena all of them and get all this information, they still wouldn't know the sender or the recipient, because that's encrypted. It doesn't show up in the routing nodes. So good luck, Chainalysis. Good luck trying to find him. On Monero, you've got a blockchain and you've got off-chain data that you can use to eliminate decoys. You don't have that on Lightning. So do your best. But yeah, I think it would have been safer if he was using Lightning than if he used Monero.
Yeah, that's very useful information. And I'm only saying this because I want to push myself to actually do it. So I'm going to say it in public. I'm planning to do a conference about privacy here in Romania later this year, maybe around Halloween. And I would love to see you on stage. I know that for you, maybe 6 months means a long time, and you're going to move on to something else, and you're going to have maybe different ideas that you come up with, because it's very hard to keep up with what you're doing. But I would love to host you, to have you on stage, to talk about this stuff and reveal what you can do with the Lightning Network, what are the limitations of it, what you can do with Monero. Maybe you're going to have time to look into Zcash.
I'd love to. I'm in. Let's make it a thing.
So don't make plans for Halloween this year. I think that's a good time. I just need to find some sponsors or something. But speaking of sponsors, I have
Privacy in the Dark conference. I don't know, something like that, something Halloween themed.
Yeah, that can be cool. But I was also thinking, I mean, it's still in a very nascent phase. I don't know what it's gonna turn out to be. But I was also thinking of this approach where maybe you have privacy advocates on one stage that's live streamed, and then blockchain analysis companies on the other stage on day one. And they do their presentations where they say, we have good privacy, but wait, we can trace that. And then on the second day, you actually have panels and you get them to debate. And you get this confrontation where maybe some people like that, maybe some don't. I don't know. I have to ask around to see if there's any interest in this. But I haven't seen anything like this. Usually conferences are one-sided. They are more bullish on something and they say, our tool is great. You should use this and that. I don't know, maybe I'm just weird and I should stick to what works as opposed to coming up with wacky ideas.
Two things. Be careful doing it around Halloween, because that's also when there's a lot more spooks. And the other thing, second thing, if full chain membership proofs gets implemented for Monero, it's supposed to allow for something called, an easier way to do something called transaction chaining. And from the Monero people I've talked to, it'll be a lot easier to build a payment channel network for Monero once they have that. So I'd really like to see, hopefully we'll have, they say that like this year it might be the year we get Monero people get full chain membership proofs. I hope so. And then somebody start working on making a payment channel network. Wouldn't it be cool to compare the Monero payment channel network with the Bitcoin payment channel network and see which one has better privacy?
Yeah, that should be fun. I guess we could also get full chain membership proofs in Bitcoin. But I don't think there's going to be consensus for this, because I remember I was at Monerotopia last year in November in Mexico, and they were explaining the trade-offs, saying that it's going to be even less scalable with full chain membership proofs, and transaction fees are going to go up. So people should expect to pay more for their privacy, but the consensus within that community is that privacy is most important, so they don't care about anything else.
Great. And could we get full chain membership proofs in Bitcoin? Does encrypting the sender count, in your opinion?
Well, that would be very nice, at least in relation to the miners, because they should not be able to see what's in the transaction. You're going to eliminate the situation where they can censor or they can do whatever people describe as MEV.
Because if you do, I don't know that it's the exact same thing to say I encrypted the sender and therefore it's a full chain membership. In fact, I think that's definitely not true. But I think they have the same effect, which is if you have an encrypted blob, anybody on the network could have created that blob. So if that's just as good as full chain membership proofs, then remember on Lightning we do encrypt the sender. So do we already have full chain membership proofs in Bitcoin? I look forward to hereby asking Luke Parker to please write an article saying why they're different.
There's Arthur Pug in the chat, and he said, "Did I miss discussion of 140 billion USDT coming to Lightning? Thanks for a fascinating guest." Is that coming to Lightning? I think it was called Taro at one point, or Taproot Assets.
I'm not familiar. Did he say $140 billion of
USDT?
It's a specific number.
It's not dollars. It's USDT.
Well, yeah, USDT Lightning. I'm going to Google that, see if I can find anything. I see that 1 hour ago, CoinDesk published an article saying that it's happening. So that's news to me. Well, I think stable coins are dumb. So I don't recommend using them. They are tied to a currency that inherently goes down in value, like it's designed to. But yeah, do your own research and make your own decisions.
Yeah. Think about all of this cool cypherpunk tech that we built just to be able to transact dollars. It's disappointing.
It is. It is disappointing. But the sad thing is, I think by volume, Tether, not Bitcoin, but Tether does the most volume in all of cryptocurrency done. And that's sad. It's sad, but somehow what I want to do, part of my mission, is to find all these people who love Tether and persuade them that Bitcoin's better than Tether. So yeah, that's all you can do, is say, well, here's why I think Bitcoin's better.
We have a question in the chat about Monero. How do nodes validate a transaction if they cannot see anything?
Well, they can see some stuff. The only thing that's actually encrypted in a Monero transaction is the amount. The sender list is obfuscation, not encryption, and the recipient is it's just a pub key, so it's not encrypted at all. Yeah, so it's a one-time pub key, or they call it one-time, even though it shows up again as a sender later. Yeah, so what can they know? They can validate that information. They can validate that that stuff is true. So the only thing they have to validate that's like hard to validate is the encrypted part, which is the amount. By the way, remember, not the full amount. They leave the fee unencrypted. And for that, they have something called zero-knowledge proofs. And you'd have to get Luke or someone who actually knows how zero-knowledge proofs on here to explain how they work. But it has something to do with, there's like a formula in mathematics where you can prove that the sum of all x's is equal to I don't know what the opposite of sum is. If you add together all the negatives and you get a large negative number, that large negative number, you can prove that it cancels out with the large positive number from the sum of all inputs, and that's how they use that algorithm. But the cool thing is that in doing so, you don't reveal the amounts. You just know that they sum to the correct value, which is supposed to be 0 in Monero's case. You're supposed to prove that there are no extra amounts. Like all the amounts from the inputs are accounted for, even though you don't know what they are in the outputs. So that's how it has something to do with zero-knowledge proofs, and since I don't know how they work, I can't detail more than just saying there's something to do with this mathematical algorithm.
What do you think about these zero-knowledge rollups that are coming to Bitcoin, including shielded client-side validation? That's something on which Robin Linus is working on, and also it's Jonas from Blockstream and Liam Egan. I've had all three of them to promote the paper at the time. And there's also the one by Starkware. There's also What else is there? The one by Alpen Labs. Do you think that they bring privacy, or is it just about bringing Ethereum features?
The latter, but it's so most of these people have connections with the BitVM stuff that and that's why I kind of have some familiarity with it, because I was how do I restart? I want to restart that sentence. A lot of the companies who are building rollups on Bitcoin have connections with the BitVM community, and I've always liked rollups. When they first came out on Ethereum, I thought this seems like a cool idea. I'm still impressed with rollups. I think they're pretty cool. Most of them seem to have a bridge model or a federated bridge model to get from Ethereum onto the rollup, and I don't think you need to do that on Ethereum. I think there's better ways to do it. So I don't know why the ones I imagine the ones that don't use a federated rollup are more expensive, and that's why they're less popular. But rollup technology I think it's cool. It's like all this activity is happening over on the sidechain or on this rollup, and then you only post a small chunk of that data, a proof of what happened onto the base layer. So I think that's great. So I want stuff like that for Bitcoin, and I'm glad that there are people trying to bring it over to Bitcoin. When I've talked to these people, I think it would be really not easy. I think that we could have had a side chain based on BitVM about 6 months after BitVM came out. As soon as, like, within a couple of weeks after BitVM came out, somebody implemented SHA-256, and I think that's all you need to build a sidechain. I think you just need to do SHA-256, then make a tree, what's it called, a Merkle tree of all the addresses that have money on this sidechain, and you post the proof of it on Bitcoin and use BitVM to validate that someone who's withdrawing really has a leaf in this tree. I think that's all you need to do. Like, it's just SHA-256 and a Merkle tree. So I'm really surprised that we didn't have one 6 months after BitVM came out, because I think I could do that as a hackathon project and raise $1 million, like I was talking about earlier. But that doesn't. So I've asked the BitVM teams, because there's like 15 companies working on BitVM now, why they haven't done this, like done the easy thing and just make a sidechain using a Merkle tree and SHA-256. And all of them said the same thing. They said, because that's not what the investors want. The investors want Ethereum. They want us to have DeFi like Ethereum does. And if we just do a SHA-256 Merkle tree, it would only be useful for peer-to-peer payments and not for, escrows and whatever else they're doing on DeFi land. And so I'm just like upset with the whole BitVM ecosystem, because they're instead of doing what I think is the cool thing, which is just make something that scales Bitcoin better and do it, they're going after this whole Ethereum stuff that I just think is pointless and unnecessary and stupid. So sad. All these smart people chasing Ethereum. Yeah, I don't know what to say other than that.
Well, there are people calling this a Trojan horse, just like they call USDT a Trojan horse, and supposedly the T in USDT stands for the Trojan horse. Or at least that's what they tell themselves when they look in the mirror.
Yeah, I don't know, but it's really weird. It's how much flexibility in Bitcoin scripting was unlocked by Taproot, and I don't think anybody at the time knew that you could do this stuff with Taproot. Once BitVM came out, I think the door was pretty much knocked open, and you can do anything on Bitcoin that you can do on any other chain, because you can emulate any other chain on Bitcoin, which is what these rollup teams are doing. They're emulating Ethereum. So yeah, it's kind of stupid that that's the one they chose to go for. Of all the blockchains, why Ethereum? And the answer is, well, that's what the investors wanted. That's where the money is.
Well, there's a bit more to that, because there is sort of, I mean, I remember for the last 8 years that there were attempts to build a better Ethereum. It's just that this one has most applications, most contracts, most developers, and it's just easy to port applications. You don't have to reinvent the wheel, even though the wheel is broken.
Well, I do like Tornado Cash. So there's a few contracts on Ethereum that I find really interesting, and one of them is Tornado Cash. So if these BitVM teams succeed at making an Ethereum clone that settles on Bitcoin, at least I will take comfort in the fact that we have Tornado Cash now on Bitcoin. So that'll be good, or at least that settles to Bitcoin.
How is Tornado Cash different from a CoinJoin?
Well, it's a pool model. So in a CoinJoin, you're using a transaction model where you have, let's say 15 people decide to do a CoinJoin together. They make a single transaction where they list all the outputs they want, and they randomize them, and that's great. You get one private transaction. In a pool model, you deposit coins into the pool, and you can leave them there. Like they just sit there in a Bitcoin or in a Ethereum address for however long you're in the pool for. And when you decide to leave or when you decide to make a transaction, you just deduct from your balance in the pool. But the advantage of this is only you know what your balance in the pool is. You have to prove using zero knowledge proofs, like how Monero does for the amounts. You have to prove that you have a balance in this pool and that the amount you're sending out is less than your current balance. But that's all you get. Like, you don't prove which person in the pool you are, and so that's great. Like it's really wonderful. It's like a constant coin join, and instead of and it's also non-interactive is the other thing. In a coin join, if you want to do a constant coin join, you can by just doing it in every block. You can join a coin join in every block, but it costs money, and it's interactive. You have to keep a server or some wallet running on your desktop that's constantly joining these coin joins. With Tornado Cash, it's non-interactive. You put your money into the pool, you turn off your device. You can even do it on a phone. You walk away, you come back a month later, and you just open it up, and your money's still there because it can't be spent unless you have the proof. When only you have the proof. So then you withdraw. Well, it's technically a withdrawal whenever you spend, but you just send it to wherever you want to send it, and it works. So I really like that model, and some of my reasons. If you guys want to look into this, search my Twitter profile. I've recently come up with a way to do a coin pool on Bitcoin that has a lot of the same properties as Tornado Cash. So look into that. I'm hoping to release a demo video soon, and I'm also going over how to make it at Bitcoin Plus for Floripa. So if you go to btcplus.dev, the word plus is spelled out, btcplus.dev. You can register for the conference in Floripa, Brazil, where I will show how to do a coin pool on Bitcoin, because I figured out how to do it. And it's not as good as Tornado Cash, but it's still got a lot of cool privacy properties. You should check it out.
No, I just became excited about BTC++. I might come. I don't know. It depends on whether or not my girlfriend gets a visa. It's more difficult for her, but we'll see.
Oh, yeah. Cool. Yeah. I look forward to possibly seeing you there.
Yeah, I got invited by Lisa to moderate something. I'm not sure exactly what, but that could be fun.
Did that answer your question though? You said how is Tornado Cash different from a coin join? Is it okay? So
it's non-interactive. You can switch it off. You just put your money in a pool, and I think that's really cool.
Yeah, me too. So if these BitVM people get us that, I'll be happy, even though I won't be happy that they had to implement all of Ethereum to do it.
I like you so much. No homo. Anyway.
I like you too. Slight homo. No, I'm just kidding.
I'm gonna put what's it called? The shop freely one? Shopstr. The Shopstr window on the screen, because you're going to present what's happening here. There are some listings. This is sort of a darknet market, right? And there's stuff that's being sold for Bitcoin.
There's stuff that's being sold for Bitcoin. So what this is, a while when are you familiar with? Well, of course you're familiar with Nostr. You announced this podcast on Nostr. Nostr came out, I don't know, 4 years ago or something, 3 years ago, and one of the specifications that was quickly created for making posts on Nostr was classified ads. So if you go to if anyone's a developer and you search for Nostr implementation possibility 99 or NIP 99, it's classified ads, and anyone can post to Nostr relays, a listing of something that they have for sale, and you give it a title, you give it a picture, you give it a price, and this website, this Shopstr website, just on Tor, it pulls down this data from a bunch of Nostr relays, 5 Nostr relays, and then displays it in a pretty fashion. And payments are made using the Lightning Network. So that's been not quite baked into Nostr, but very closely. But most of the early Nostr developers, including the creator of Nostr, were also Lightning developers. So there's like a lot of co-working that happened there. And a lot of the stuff that happens on Nostr is using the Lightning Network, including these classified ads. So that's why this particular DNM, all it is doing is just pulling classified ads from Nostr and then displaying them and giving you a button for having items in your cart and purchasing them. But yeah, to me, it qualifies as a darknet market. And if you scroll a little while, you can also see so some prior examples that I've given of this, people will say it's not a darknet market unless there's drugs on it. And I think that's stupid because there's a lot of stuff on darknet markets, not just drugs. But yeah, some people are on Shopstr selling drugs, which is a thing. Don't do drugs, but yeah, they're doing it. So there is a darknet market that has drugs, and it uses the Lightning Network for payments. And this is it. This is the one that I know of.
Oh, you can buy hardware wallets, but I would never buy a hardware wallet from these guys. I saw that there's a banana art. There's an Atari 2600 with a controller that looks tempting.
Yeah, another thing to be aware of, there's no escrow on these things. You just send the money directly. You effectively, it's not the same as a Zap, but it's similar to Zaps. They have their own way of doing Lightning payments, but it goes directly to the recipient. There's no like custodian. Well, actually, I think most of them are using eCash Mint, but yeah, but it depends on which mint you're using because you can run your own mint. I assume most of this stuff is custodied, but the custodial services that are using it do not offer escrow services, and consequently, if you buy, a banana taped to a wall, and then you send him the money, and he doesn't send you a banana taped to a wall, all you can do is leave him a bad review. You don't get your money back. So be aware of that. Oh, I found the listing that has drugs. I will post it in your Telegram so you can see.
Under which category is it?
Oh, I don't know. Let me check.
Food?
I just scrolled until I found it. It is. How do you see the categories? I don't. The listing page doesn't show what categories it has. I could probably find out. Let me look it up by means of.
Maybe it's miscellaneous.
It could be. I think the categories are in the listing from Nostr, so I could look it up that way. But I'll have to refresh the page and get all listings that mention this. Okay, got that. Here's the response.
Okay, I take that back. This is a lot like XMR Bazaar.
There you go. He's learning stuff. No, I'm not. Maybe I can get it from another relay. I would have to look into it to find out what category it's under, but I just sent you the link.
No,
so
it's fine. I pasted the link. It's just that Tor is being Tor.
Yeah.
I need to search for a new circuit. Make it load. Come on. I believe in you. It's just not loading.
Well,
can you tell me what it's called and I can search for it?
Yeah, I could a second ago. I think it had the word hash in it.
Hash.
I don't know. I scrolled for like 3 minutes.
Chocolate hash rounds by Colin CZ.
They look like Reese's Pieces, and apparently they have marijuana in them. So that's a thing.
I don't know. I'm on a diet. You seem to be going to the gym too.
Yeah, and I also don't do drugs. So
me neither.
There's a guy selling homemade piccalilli, and I had to look it up because I was like, that's probably a drug. And no, it's not. It's just a plant.
But this guy's also selling his Canon camera.
There you go. So yeah, it's like XMR Bazaar, but it's on Tor. Well, this instance is on Tor. There's another instance that's not on Tor, so you can also browse it on ClearNet. It's also built into Amethyst. If you have the Amethyst app on Android, this it also displays classified ads from across the Nostrverse, so you can do that too.
So Shopstr, check it out. It's pretty cool. You can find Google Pixel phones, a Kindle Paperwhite 1 for €50. Not bad.
I'm thinking about making something to show off how you can use Lightning on darknet markets, but my darknet market would only sell Bibles. So I was going to call it HarkNet Market because the angels in the Bible always say hark.
They say hark?
Yeah, it means listen in Old English. It's like listen, then they say something. Hark.
You can
Anyway,
buy an iPhone 15 Pro Max with 1 million Satoshis from Spain. How much is that in today's money? It's like $1,000.
Does it look worth $1,000 to you?
Not really.
Oh, there you go.
Maybe I would pay 800, but I'm not sure when the listing was made and what the price was. That's part of the problem when you denominate in Bitcoin. It becomes more expensive and gets out of control.
You can always just you can edit your listings. These are all replaceable Nostr events, so you can edit it, change the price, and then repost it. You can also denominate in US dollars on Shopstr listings or in any other currency.
But I think I met the Shopstr guys in Nashville. They had a booth. It's just that I was ignorant. I did not realize it. For some reason, it just went over my head. I actually won something in the raffle. Wait, I think I have it here.
I convinced the Shopstr guys to make a significant privacy improvement, which is originally on Shopstr, you had to sign in order to buy stuff. Cool, a Flipper Zero. You want to tell us about your Flipper Zero?
I've never used it, really. But I do have it.
There you go.
And I think it's illegal in some countries. I don't know about that. I just got it from their contest.
So originally on Shopstr, you had to sign in order to buy stuff. So if you clicked, buy now, or you added something to your cart, it would be like, you have to log in to do that behavior. And that's stupid. And I told them, why do you make the buyer log in? All he's going to do is send a message to the seller containing where to send the item and his money. You could just spin up a public key for him, in the background, and send the message using that public key, and then he wouldn't have to give away his real identity or his Nostr identity to use the shop. And so they implemented that, and a few months later, Shopstr came out again, and now you don't need to sign in order to buy stuff, which I think is a big privacy improvement. So, yay for privacy.
Yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff happening, and I'm not even aware of it. Thank you for telling me about this. Oh, there's someone selling a Lambo. I think. It has no price, it has no details, just one picture.
Don't trust, verify.
Yeah.
He's probably not selling a Lambo.
And it's silver. Like, who would buy a silver Lambo? You gotta buy it orange if you're gonna spend Bitcoin on it. Right? I mean, I don't think I'll ever get to the point where I'm like, oh, okay, let's buy a Lambo, but who knows?
I bought a Monte Carlo once. Does that count as getting to that point?
A what?
A Monte Carlo.
What's a Monte Carlo?
It's a muscle car. It looks cool.
Oh, let me look that up. Monte Carlo car. Is it one word or two words? Oh, Chevrolet Monte Carlo. Okay.
Yeah, it's two words. So I got one of those once, and I felt cool. I was like, "Man, I've got a cool looking car."
Yeah, you don't find something like this in Europe. It's not environmental enough, and people don't like it. They don't import something like this. It was probably never sold here anyway.
But it's named after a city there.
Sure. I don't think Paris Hilton was born in Europe, and she's named after a city too.
But wait, you guys have, what's it called? Marzetti's or whatever. The car that's made by the fancy Italian guy. Ferrari. You guys have Ferrari.
And Pagani and even fancier stuff. And Lamborghini.
Yeah, like you're saying, no one would import a fancy car. Well, you don't need to import them because you make them right there.
Yeah, but this is a Chevy. I think it's much more affordable than a Ferrari or a Porsche.
Well, it was very affordable. I can admit to that. I felt rich though because it looks cool.
Yeah. It's a muscle car. So what was the gas mileage on this one?
22 miles per gallon. Well, but I have to convert that to metric for you. MPG to what is it? KPM, I think is what you guys. Okay, let me just
Liters per kilometer, yeah. Liters per 100 kilometers. That's how we measure.
10.7 liters per 100 kilometers.
10.7?
That's what the internet tells me.
I've seen much worse, honestly. I expected that, given that it's a muscle car, to do like 15, 20.
Yeah, well, it was a muscle car for mass adoption, so they throttled the engine speed on it. They put a 6-cylinder engine in there, and then if you revved it, it would just like cap at a certain point. You couldn't rev past that.
Seems like you had a pretty wild youth, man. Did the girls like it?
I never asked.
You don't have to ask, you just know.
Well, they didn't tell me then.
Oh, that's good. If there were at least girls and they never mentioned it, that's good. I gotta mention 2 more sponsors and then I'll ask you more questions about Lightning Network and privacy. So check out No Ones. They recently got hacked. That's a good way to introduce them. They lost some Solana from their bridge and they're going to make the customers even. And the message from them actually is to not keep your coins on exchanges unless you're planning to immediately exchange that. But what No Ones is this peer-to-peer marketplace that is trying to empower people from what Ray Youssef, the CEO, calls the global south. And I think they do that mostly with gift cards because these are most liquid. It's what everyone wants. They're buying them. Everyone gets a cut. And if you want to participate in this economy, check out noones.com, I think. It also started out, it's interesting because it started out as CivKit, which was built on Nostr. And now it's a standalone marketplace. And there's also hodling.ch, which is a service from Switzerland. They help you with self-custody. If you have a lot of Bitcoin and have no idea how to manage it in order to avoid $5 rent attacks, or you're part of a company that's planning to buy Bitcoin and you don't know how to manage the setup to have a quorum and maybe to avoid having an annoying CTO stealing everything, then you can contact these guys and they're going to provide all the consultation and all of the good advice about how you can set up, or whether or not you should be using hardware wallets, how you should use multi-sig and all of that. So check out hodling.ch. And recently they also added a service for coin recovery. So if you lost part of your seed phrase, they might be able to brute force that. Or if you give them some details, they might help you recover your coins. Of course, there's a cut that they're gonna take for that. It will not be a free service, but I guess it's better than losing coins forever. So check out hodling.ch. Anyway, let's talk about exciting Lightning stuff because it seems like what's really news these days is that they're getting USDT on it. Like, I remember initially that Lightning was going to be this bridge across blockchains. It was going to enable atomic swaps. It was going to make exchanges obsolete. It was going to have much better privacy. What happened to that?
It's well, it's not entirely false. There are 2 other, like Rootstock uses it, and so does Bolts Exchange, or I mean, so does Liquid, and you can use Bolts Exchange to swap between those places using the Lightning Network. So it is bridging between 3 different chains: Bitcoin, Liquid, and Rootstock. So there's that. The other thing is it's going to kill exchanges. I guess we're still in progress. There's 2 exchanges that use Lightning now, or two exchange killers that use Lightning, RoboSats and Bisq. So you can do your fiat on and off ramping through those and use the Lightning Network. But I guess you're not, like, even if I give you examples of the things you described being things, I think you're wondering, why aren't they popular? Is that what you're wondering, or?
It's not just popularity, but also investing and building at least usable applications, because it's still pretty complicated, and if it's not complicated, you have to use services like bolts that take a cut, and that was not the purpose of it, right? It was supposed to be easy for you to swap assets.
Yeah. Well, I think RoboSats is easy, so give that a try. You can swap assets using RoboSats, and I think it's really easy. Bisq also has Lightning, but I don't think it's as easy. I have not had a successful Lightning trade on Bisq since they added it. But good on you for adding it, Bisq. Do it better, I guess. RoboSats got it figured out. Yeah, I don't know. I guess I think that most people don't care about their privacy until they get burned, and that's when they start caring. So I think that as long as it is easier to go on, Kraken or Coinbase or whatever, and get your Bitcoins there, people aren't going to use the people aren't going to use private solutions if they're not as easy, except if they've been burned. Like the people who do are, people who either got censored from an exchange somehow, or, they're like you and me, or me anyway, who just think it's cool, so I do it anyway. But there's just not many people like that. There's not many people who particularly care about their privacy, and so you don't see a lot of people going through extra hoops in order to do something privately. I don't know what to say about it other than it's sad, and I try to change that by encouraging people to use RoboSat specifically.
Yeah. I just want to mention this. I'm not sure if it's legally advisable or something, but when I sold my Bitcoin to buy the car, I decided to do it by the book. So I KYC'd to Kraken. I went for every step. I sold to my bank account. I reported to my bank account, and now they want to shut down my account potentially, and they want information that I don't have, like where did I get the Bitcoin from? And this is a requirement that entered part of a EU regulation that started this year. And when I bought the Bitcoin 8 years ago, there was no such regulation. It's really stupid. And I didn't buy it from an exchange. That's KYC, so I can't prove anything. I could also mine it or get it as a gift or donation. It's very hard to prove anything, but I wanted to do everything by the book. But if I maintained my cypherpunk mindset and I just sold it on Bisq, or I met someone on Vexel and I got a bag of money, and then I went to the bank and deposited this to the bank and told them, I'm a male prostitute. I'm an OnlyFans model. I don't know. I sleep
Careful,
with your
people will be clipping
manager.
this section of the video.
Exactly. I sleep with your bank's manager. What can you do? I got paid hush money or something. They would be like, okay, fine. I would tell them, I play poker with rich people. They would just shrug it off and say, yeah, that's fine. It doesn't matter. You can deposit into the bank. But since my transaction was associated with Kraken, they asked me all sorts of questions. And also Kraken were assholes too. They asked me a lot of questions which I'm not going to answer. Just fuck them. Let them close my account.
Yeah. Do you need, why would you deposit if you got a bag of money from Vexel, from someone on Vexel, why would you deposit it at the bank? Why not walk directly over to the guy who has the car and say, here's your $100,000 or whatever it is?
Because it was much more than you said $100,000. No, it was much cheaper than that. But in Romania, which is part of the European Union, we have a limit for 2,000 euro. So anything above 2,000 euro has to go for a bank. The guy, if he sees a bag of money, he would never accept that. He's gonna ask me to go to a bank.
I recommend finding a new country. That one sounds like it has terrible laws for financial privacy.
It really does. Like if I want to buy a laptop that's more expensive than €2,000, and I save every month for 2 years, let's say I save €100 for 2 years, that's 2,400. I still have to put that in a bank if I want to buy what I want.
Well, there's 180 some. There's like 205 countries, I think, at last count by the UN. So pick one of those, and maybe one of the ones that doesn't make you do that. In the US, you can buy cars for cash.
You can also do that here if it's less than €2,000.
That sounded like I was saying go to the US. I don't think you should go to the US. The US has other laws that are really bad, but at least they can do that one. That's the thing.
I don't know how long this is going to last. It just feels like it became more intrusive. I mean, I'm a big fan of the open market of the European Union. I'm a big fan of countries collaborating. But at this point, just having these regulations that come from Brussels and they're not... I don't know. I'm not sure if they're justified. Maybe that they concern problems that they have in Brussels and they're out of touch with the reality somewhere else. It's really messed up. Like getting an email from my bank, I've been their customer since I was 16 years old, and they said, we want to check if you're participating in money laundering or terrorist financing. And I was like, really? You really let that part in when you send me that email? Like, I don't know. It sucks. And I try to do everything by the book, and I try to be as transparent as possible. And if I wasn't and I lied to them, it would be much better. And that's what is really ironic about the situation.
Well, leaving is always an option. So that's my vote. Or if you asked for advice, which you didn't, I would tell you leave.
How do you manage it? Like, there are legends about yourself that you live in a tent or something and you just travel around the world and never stay for longer than a week anywhere.
Well, I did live in a tent for a year, I think. I lived in a tent for a year. But I'm not living in a tent now. I'm living at a hostel, and I've been in Guadalajara, Mexico for since July, however many months that is. So off and on, I still travel all over the place to Bitcoin conferences and stuff. So I'm often gone for weeks at a time, but I keep coming back to Guadalajara, and I really like it here. So you should come to Guadalajara. It's great.
I should learn Spanish.
Yeah, I don't speak it very well either, but you can get by.
Coming back to the topic of Lightning, there's something I really wanted to ask you but forgot. You have lots of implementations, maybe not lots of them, maybe a handful. You have LND, which is the most popular. You have Core Lightning, which was supposed to be big, but it never took off. You have the one by Async that's called Eclair, and I think that one is being used by Phoenix for their wallet. You have one by Electrum, which I think is remotely based on Async's implementation. And you also have LDK, which is Lightning Development Kit. And I'm not sure how used that one is. But are there any differences in them in terms of privacy? Because that's the topic that we are tackling in this episode.
That's a good question. I've never thought about it, about different privacy implications of different ones. The only possibly useful thought I have on that is the guys from Mutiny Wallet were very focused on building a privacy-first Lightning wallet, and they used LDK. So I don't know if they did that just because they're Rust developers. Actually, that's probably why they did it, is because they're Rust developers and it's written in Rust. But it might have been because they were like, this one's the best for privacy. I don't know. You have to ask them, because I don't know which one's the best for privacy. I think of those, a different thing that is not the question at all is which one's the easiest to use. And I think it's Electrum, because with Electrum, you go to electrum.org and you click download and you get something that looks like an application that you can use. And with the other ones, they don't even have websites. You have to go to like their GitHubs to find the download link. Well, they have websites, but not where you can just download the software. And when you download it, you get like a zip file, and you have to unzip it and then find the binaries and then know what to do with the binary. So yeah, Electrum is the only one that is just like you double click the icon and a Lightning wallet pops up, and it's got a full implementation of the Lightning network in there. So I really like that one.
Yeah, and Thomas is so proud of it. I've met him a
Yeah, I
couple of
think
times.
you said you think it's based on async. I thought he wrote the entire thing in Python from scratch. Like that's what I thought he was so proud. Why he's so proud of it? It's because he wrote the entire. He implemented all the bolt specs himself in Python, which is not even like that's insane to do that. That's like the stuff I do with JavaScript, is doing it with Python.
That's also possible. Maybe I don't know. Maybe I misunderstood. I did interview him like 3 or 4 years ago about this, so that's what I remember from what he told me, with trampoline routing and stuff like this. But maybe he wrote it from scratch.
Yeah, I think his implementation and Eclair are the only ones that support. Well, I don't think that's true anymore. I was about to say they're the only ones that support trampoline routing, but I think the other ones have added it now. I'd have to check. Sorry, I can't. Yeah, but sorry, I don't know the answer to that.
No, it's all good. There's someone in the chat who's also asking something that I've been meaning to say. What about Bolt 12? Because this one has been a major talking point in the Lightning space. I remember, who was it from Core Lightning, or at the time it was C Lightning, who was blaming LND for not working on it. Rusty.
Rusty, yeah,
Yeah.
I think it was Rusty. What about Bolt 12? So
it was supposed to give you much better privacy and also allow you to have multiple time reusable addresses or something.
Yeah, it definitely gives you a reusable address, and that is pretty useful. And I think, well, there's already been implementations of that before, and they were really popular. And now this one's out, and it's also having some popularity. That I think is the real kicker. I'm not sure that it really does improve your privacy all that much. So earlier, I think it was this year, very recently, within the last 6 months, I was at another conference and they had a hackathon. And as part of my hackathon, I decided to make an atomic swap tool that would swap between a Bolt 11 payment and a Bolt 12 payment, so that if your wallet didn't support Bolt 12, you could still do it. One of the things that Bolt 12 is supposed to be really good at is hiding the recipient information. And when I looked into it, I was like, oh, great, then I shouldn't see a public key in there, because that's the only recipient information in a Lightning invoice is your public key. But there is one. Like I decoded a Bolt 12 invoice, and there's a pub key in there. And I was like, that's strange. In what sense is it hiding the recipient's information then? Because if you still have a pub key, then Chainalysis could still like plug that into their OFAC thing and do a pass fail, and whether it's on the OFAC list. And once again, the public key is only used for information. No money gets sent to it, or it's only used for a communication. No money gets sent to it. But the thing that they say when I like talk to people about this is, it's not that it hides your pub key; it's that it hides your network string. So on the Lightning network, you have a network string which is either Tor or an IPv4 or an IPv6 address that specifies where your node is on the network. And they say if you use Bolt 12, then they can see your pub key, but they don't know what node you're on the network. But that's already true of Bolt 11 unless you're a routing node. If you're a routing node, then you're saying, here I am on the network, come connect to me. But if you're not a routing node, you don't disclose your nodes, your connection string anyway, even in your invoice. So what exactly privacy benefit is there to Bolt 12? It's not. It still has a public key in there, and they say, well, it doesn't reveal your connection string, but you'd only reveal your connection string if you're a routing node anyway. In which case, you're doing it, you're gossiping it, you're publishing it. So, I don't understand the privacy gain anymore. Justin Shocknet has been, he's one of the guys on Twitter I'm friends with, and he's been criticizing Bolt 12 for like making false claims for a long time, not Bolt 12, but the developers behind it for making false claims. And I don't agree with him on all of this stuff about Bolt 12, but after doing a hackathon project with it, I was like, I don't really think it does improve your recipient privacy on the Lightning Network. I think Bolt 11 has really good recipient privacy, and Bolt 12 is just it doesn't do what it says on the tin. So sorry, but it does do the reusable thing, which is nice. Like I really like that aspect of it. So it's nice to have a reusable string.
Let me ask you a few more personal questions. What do you work on these days? What keeps you busy?
This month I've been working on my coin pool implementation, and so that's what's been keeping me busy this month. What was it last month? I recently made something called Mint Market Cap, which is I wanted to find out how much money is on eCash mints, and they don't disclose that information. So what I did was I got the top 25 from BitcoinMints.com, and then I queried each one for an invoice, and then I used their invoice to get their node public key. And since these are routing nodes, I knew that they were advertising their node on the network. So I looked up their node on the network and found how much money they have in capacity. And then I made Mint Market Cap, which shows a list of all the amount of money that's that they have in total capacity. And then if you assume that the amount of money that they have is divided 50-50 between money on their side and money that's available for outgoing, then you can get an estimate of how much money is on eCash mints, which I thought was kind of neat because they don't disclose that, but I figured out a way to get data. It's probably not good data. Someone pointed out that a lot of the mints are using Strike and using Phoenix D, the Phoenix implementation for desktops as their backend. And so I'm including like hundreds of Bitcoins that are probably just used by Strike and Phoenix D, and they're not used for eCash. So the numbers are probably way off, but they are numbers. So I made that. Let me just go. I can go to my GitHub repo and find out what I was working on last month. I forget. I'm working on new projects all the time, so so it changes. And now my internet's slow. Are you still able to hear me okay?
Yeah, I'm able to hear you. I guess there are some people who complained that maybe there are moments when the audio cuts out. I'm not sure about that. I did not experience it.
Oh, I made something called Title Transfer app. So I did a lot of work on state chains recently, or last month. And state chains are another really cool privacy tool in Bitcoin that I worked on. And I thought it would be cool if, in addition to using a state chain to transfer Bitcoin around, it would be cool if you could list any item that you have, like a banana or, I don't know, whatever this is. You could list this. You make a title for it and you just say, I hereby certify that I have, this thing. And if I transfer this title to you using a state chain, then you get the same chain of signatures that a state chain gives for Bitcoin, only this would be for a physical item or for a digital item. So I made title transfer apps so that you can just sell things using the same state chain model that some people use for Bitcoin. So that was a neat thing. I also came up with a way to I found a way to make it so that a state chain can't rob you, which is the current implementation of state chains called Mercury Layer. And it's possible for them to assist so if somebody sends you coins on a state chain, the state chain entity is responsible for preventing double spends or preventing the person from taking their money back. And if he's malicious, he can allow a double spend. But I figured out a way to make it so that even if he does that, you still get all your money out. Like you don't get robbed. And I call that insured state chains. So I wrote up a specification for it, and then I made a video at Adopting Bitcoin on how this protocol works. And I thought I would implement it, but then while I was working on the state chains thing, I figured out how to do a coin pool, and then I got distracted by that, and I've been working on that ever since. So I'll have to do my insured state chain thing some other time. I've been doing a lot of stuff with Nostr Wallet Connect. Nostr Wallet Connect is a protocol for communicating with wallets using the Nostr protocol. It's a protocol for using another protocol. That's true. But yeah, it lets you basically DM your wallet, direct message your wallet a command and say like send money to this person or receive money from that person. And it's nice because then you can have your phone in your wallet or in your pocket, and you don't have to pull it out. You can just send it a command by hitting a button on your keyboard, and it'll just do the thing. So I made some tools. I made a couple of wallets that supported it, and I made like an interface, and I made a testing tool so the developers can test their stuff against that. So that's what I was working on last month. I made something called Faucet Generator. I got mad about all these Bitcoin testnet faucets that keep on shutting down. They keep on like the mempool recently launched one, but they put a requirement that you have to sign in with your GitHub account in order to get coins from their faucet, which I thought was stupid. And a bunch of the other ones made it so that you can only withdraw like 2,000 sats from them, which is really difficult for a developer to do anything if he only has 2,000, testnet sats. So I made my own faucet called Faucet Generator, where you can spin up a faucet that just has a normal send button and a balance and a Bitcoin address for you to load it with. But the nice thing is you can generate them on the fly. So if you want to give someone their own testnet faucet, you can create one that's empty and then send money from your faucet to theirs and then just give them the link. And now they've got a faucet with no rate limits and no one else knows about it. So I made that. That was kind of fun to make, Faucet Generator. What did I get? I made my own testnet. I should have called it Super's Testnet because there's a misnaming opportunity, but I just called it Testnet Launcher. So I got mad at this one because, well, it's actually the same issue that led me to make the faucet generator. I couldn't get testnet coins from the faucets, and I was like, well, I'll just make my own testnet where I could generate coins just by clicking a button. And so I did. I made my own testnet that understands the rules of Bitcoin script, and it uses the same transaction validity rules as Bitcoin, but you can just generate coins by clicking a button. It generates 50 coins every time you click it. And so then you have no need for a faucet. You just make your own coins and use my testnet. So there's that. Is that enough? I work on stuff all the time, and it's just I constantly changing to new projects. So it's hard to say when you want me to stop.
I have no idea what enough even means in this context. Like, there's a lot that you're doing. You're all over the place. I think state chains are super underrated. I did interview the guys from Mercury Layer a few times. And of course, most of the stuff that they said went over my head because I don't really understand how it works, but it's really cool. It's like this layer where you transfer UTXO ownership.
Yeah, you transfer the private key, which is a really strange idea and sounds awful, but it's so magical. After I finish my CoinPool implementation, I want to make a prediction market, and so I figured out a way to do I think I figured out a way to do a prediction market on Bitcoin. Some of my ideas I have to implement them to see if they work, and I'm pretty sure this one will work, but it's pretty cool, and it'll be really hard to build. But yeah, I think I figured out a way to do a prediction market similar to Predix or what's that one that's on Ethereum that everyone uses?
Polymarket.
Polymarket, yeah. I figured out a way to make something like Polymarket, but make it work on Bitcoin without needing a soft fork. And the only new trust assumption is the same one Polymarket has, which is that Oracle honesty. If the Oracle who says, the Packers beat the Saints lies, then you can lose money that way. But that's the only new trust assumption added. Whereas other methods of adding prediction markets on Bitcoin, they usually have custody. So I figured out a way to do it without custody, but unless you count the Oracle as a kind of custodian, because you can just, send the money to the wrong person, and that's kind of what a custodian does. Yeah, so that's something. But the reason I bring that up is because it relies on the fact that with a state chain, you can transfer ownership of a private key in a secure way. And so what I do is I make it so that private key is the recipient of coins that have not yet been sent, but they can be sent depending on the outcome of an Oracle's, thing. So that allows you to have coins that will be yours if you guess correctly on the prediction market. But because these coins aren't in the address yet, and it's a state chain address, you can transfer them as long as it's before the event has occurred. You can transfer ownership of that private key to other people, and thus sell your right to take away money if you guessed correctly on the outcome of the event. So that's a prediction market. So I want to make that, and that uses state chains. I don't know. It's just so much to build. You want to see? Am I able to share my screen and you guys would actually see it on here?
You should be able to.
Okay, I'm going to show you my backlog of projects. I get like 5 ideas a day, and some of them, if they're a good idea, I write them down. So let me share my screen. Can you see it? You see a document here?
I see it now. Just let me adjust for the live stream video because I basically cut your portrait to show the people. Okay, so this is like a Google Doc.
It's a Google Doc I have called Project Ideas or To-Do List. And it is 8 pages of different ideas I've had for Bitcoin software that I can make. And, you know, each of these things someday, that one's a really long idea. You know, one day I will make each of these things. We'll see, but I get ideas much faster than I can create them. So I'm up to 49 ideas in my backlog right now, and it's just a constant flood of ideas. So yeah, I'm always moving on to new projects.
Well, that's a good problem to have.
Yeah, I love it. I wouldn't have it any other way.
I know a bunch of guys in this space who are riffing on the same idea for almost a decade, and it's getting stale, it's getting boring. So it's really refreshing to have people like you who always come up with something new and different. Not necessarily new, but different. Like, I'm pretty sure Paul Stortz, he has been the guy who tried to bring prediction markets to Bitcoin for longer than a decade. I'm not sure exactly why he hasn't, but I'm pretty sure he would be interested to hear your idea.
Yeah, I think he wanted to build drive chains so that he could build a prediction market. And I don't think he thinks that. I suspect if I shared my idea with him of doing it with the state chain, he would. I think he would be like, "This is stupid." If you don't, he would probably say, "If you're not paying miners to run this project for you, then miners will kill it. They will refuse to mine the transactions or something, and then that's why we need to do it on drive chains." That's what I suspect Paul would say if I told him about my idea. Just be like, "Well, if it doesn't pay miners, it's a dumb idea."
Well, I hope he listens and he's gonna give you feedback. I was also going to ask you about your music career because there is something related to that going on. You have a handful of songs that I've listened to. I think my favorite is your cover of La Bamba, but adapted to the Bitcoin context. You changed the lyrics.
Oh, that one's your favorite. That was my first one, and I was just lying in bed one day, and I think I was listening to the song, and I was like, "Oh, that'd be funny if I changed it to La Bitcoin." So I just sitting in my bed, I just put my earphones up to my mouth and started singing, and I recorded myself, and I released it as a single, and that launched my music career, which currently spans five songs, and one concert. I did a concert in Brazil at SatsConf, so that was fun. Yeah, perhaps more will come, but I've been so focused on coding lately. I haven't even. Well, I have thought of a couple new songs. Maybe I should record those. I thought of Lightning Network killed Monero's use case. Lightning Network killed Monero's use case. Encryption on the monetary base. And then I would do, I only came up with that part, but I'd need to write lyrics for all the verses. That would be fun.
I think it sounds better if it's Lightning has killed Monero's use case because it has the same cadence,
Yeah.
If you say Lightning Network killed, it's too many syllables.
It is too many syllables, but putting in a perfect tense there is also strange to my ears. I don't know. Maybe it certainly needs workshopped. So I only have those two lines. But yeah, I sang that for some of the guys at the co-working space here, and they thought it was hilarious.
So where can people find you over the next few months? Which conferences are you attending? What are you gonna speak about?
Well, I'm going to Bitcoin Plus Tharipa, and I will be talking there about my CoinPool implementation. I'm hoping to do a demo of the software, and then an explanation of how it works. And then we'll do a live coding session where we'll actually make the core functionality together. And I'm hoping wallet developers will come and learn how to do this so we can integrate coin pools into Bitcoin wallets. So they offer a number of advantages over, including over the Lightning Network. They're faster. A coin pool is faster than the Lightning Network because you don't have any routing. You don't have to do pathfinding on a coin pool. It's cheaper because inside the pool, all transactions are free. Whereas on Lightning, fees are low, but they're still there. And so in a coin pool, you can have absolutely free transactions. Yeah, it's also mine is asynchronous, so you can send coins to somebody without needing them to give you something first. So in Bitcoin, normally someone has to give you their Bitcoin address, or they have to give you a Lightning invoice for you to send them money. On mine, you create like a packet of money for them, and you send it to them, and then they can redeem it on this coin pool, which is great. I really, that's my favorite thing about it, is the asynchronicity. So that's what I'm going to be talking about there, and I'll explaining how that works, doing the demo, and then we'll do a live coding session. The next one that I'm supposed to be at is in May, and I have not confirmed my attendance at it yet, but there are two conferences that want me to go to them in May. One of them is called Bitcoin 2025, and it's in Las Vegas, and the other one is in Austin, Texas, and it's a Bitcoin Plus Plus. So I'll probably go to both of them, but I haven't yet confirmed my attendance. I don't know the rest of the ones I'll be going to. There's one in Argentina that I'd like to go to. I would like to go to SatsConf again. My favorite
Is it La
conference.
BitConf in Argentina or something else?
Well, I want to go to that too, but there is another. There's supposed to be another one. The guy who started La BitConf wants to do another one now. At least he told me he did, because he said that he was upset that La BitConf now does other altcoins. It's like Bitcoin plus a bunch of other stuff. So he wants to redo it. He wants to make a new conference that is once again Bitcoin only. And I think like it's easier to do that now. Maybe for a few years there, it was really hard to be Bitcoin only, but now it's easier again. So he wants to do that, and he invited me to be one speaker at that. But I haven't heard anything else, and I think he said it was going to be in April. So I think I would know something by now. Yeah, so maybe that might not happen. That's as far out as I've planned, and I haven't even finished finalizing my plans for May. I don't like to plan more than 3 months in advance, so that's why I haven't confirmed my attendance for those May conferences yet, because I want to wait till February.
When you travel to so many conferences and you have commitments to do presentations, and I guess you also try to open some sort of school where you're teaching some basic stuff about how to use Bitcoin from the command line and construct transactions and stuff. When you have time to actually do work, when you have all of these other commitments?
Well, I don't really I haven't done the workshops since November. I stopped in December because of holidays, and then I just haven't restarted again. So that has taken one load of work off the table. And as for the conferences, I'm almost always doing a workshop at a conference. And so it's still work. Like for me to prepare for the conference, I have to make the software that I'm going to present. And so it's still work. Yeah, it facilitates. Rarely do I have a deadline on my projects. The only time I have a deadline is when I have something that I'm supposed to present at a conference, and that's nice. There are benefits to having deadlines, like they motivate you to get the work done, even when you don't want to work on it. Which is hard for me, because normally I just do whatever I want, and if I don't want to work on something, I'm just like, I'm just not going to do it. But if I told someone I will do this for your work for your conference, then I kind of feel more obligated.
Oh, you still have a lot of energy, which I admire. Like the cadence with which you speak and the enthusiasm, they speak for themselves, you know.
Ah, thank you.
And you lost some weight. That. Congratulations on that.
Thank you. I'm glad you noticed. I've been going to the gym daily for since December 30th, doing 2 hours swimming, and I cut down my calorie intake to 1,300 a day, and it's having an effect. Check it out. Check it out. And I'm thinner than I was. I'm not thin yet, but I'm thinner. So it's coming along.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's good to see how many people in Bitcoin are improving their lives, even in small ways, you know, because it's so easy to forget about yourself and just focus on work. I've actually gained weight since the last time, but I'm not sure if it's fat or muscle, because I go to the gym, but I don't do cardio. So, yeah. Anyway.
Swimming counts as cardio, right?
What counts as cardio?
Swimming?
Swimming, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
It's a pretty good workout. I should try that. It's just that it's winter here, so it's not very nice to, especially when you have long hair. but that's long hair people problems. I feel sorry for asking you this so late into the episode, but I've turned this into sort of a habit. Maybe I'll just make a compilation of people answering this question. But what do you think about increasing the block size of Bitcoin at any point for the purpose of just making it easier for people to onboard layer 2s in a non-custodial way? Like, we have much faster internet than we did in 2017. Bandwidth is cheaper, storage is cheaper. For the same amount of money that you would spend on, let's say, a 1 terabyte SSD back in 2017, now you get a 4 terabyte one. So, do you think there is ever a point where it makes sense to do that? Or do you think we're stuck to, I guess we're culturally in love with having these small blocks, and even if there's demand for it, it will never happen because it requires a hard fork?
Well, I think you can do it with a soft fork. So we managed to fit a block size increase, or to get a block size increase into Bitcoin when we did SegWit, and we increased it by 4x at the time. I would like to do that again and increase it by 16x. Let's do a 16x soft fork block size increase.
128 megabytes?
Sure. Create a new witness field and call it witness 2, and you can put stuff in there. And because it's a soft fork, it's opt-in. If you don't want the block size increase, just keep running the old software, and you won't see whatever's in witness 2. So that's my proposal. And I think one thing I think that would be good for is inscriptions. You put your inscriptions in witness 2, and then people who want them can just have that extra data there, and people who don't will just not download the new software, and then more people get what they want. So that's I'm in favor of a block size increase, but I want to do it as another soft fork like we did with SegWit.
So basically to have another witness side where you put this data?
Yeah, you can put any data you want, but I imagine it would be, well, actually inscriptions aren't really popular anymore. Maybe this idea would have been more popular if I said it 2 years ago. But yeah, I'm saying it now.
Okay, but is this prunable?
Yeah, you just don't download the witness 2 data.
So would you say that these transactions are less valuable than the other ones because they're gonna get stored by a smaller amount of nodes?
I would say they're less valuable, but if you apply the subjective theory of value, my opinion on something's value doesn't matter. It's just whether the market thinks this stuff is valuable, that determines its monetary price. So if somebody put something in witness 2 that people wanted to buy, that would be valuable to those people, and that's then you just let the market decide. I'm all for giving people options. I'm really glad that options exist, and whenever there are fewer options, I want to make more of them.
That's beautiful. You should put that on a t-shirt, but like make it shorter so it's easy to read.
Options are good.
Options are good. You should sell that in your shop or something. Put it on Shopstr.
Yeah, I could. When I was doing my workshops, I was selling them on Shopstr. I think I was the only educator with a DNM for workshops, to buy my workshops on a darknet market.
Well, that's the way it should be, right? You should not know who your students are, and you should not know where the money comes from.
I also made it so that all of my workshops were also available for free. So if you go to my website, you can still buy a workshop, but every link says you either click here to buy it for, I think it's $5 per workshop, or click here to get it for free. And then it just takes you to the YouTube link. It's the exact same thing. If you buy it, all it does is send you a YouTube link.
You're just circumventing this idea that people will pirate this and put it on torrents. So you're like, well, why bother? Just get it from my source.
No, I thought it would be funny to have something that says like you can buy this or you can get the exact same thing for free right here. I thought it'd be funny, and sometimes humor motivates me to do things. But there's a second reason, which is that I like information to be free. I want people to take my workshops even if they can't afford them. So I made them only $5 a piece so that more people could afford them. And I was just like, why don't I just make them available for free for anyone who can't afford it? So that's what I did. And so any of your listeners, if you want to do a workshop, go to my website, supertestnet.org. You can find them there, and you can click either the button that sends me $5, or you can click the button that gives them for free.
Super Testnet, I'm a huge fan of your work. I recommend people to follow you. It's super_testnet on Twitter. And I think it's super space testnet on Nostr. I'm not sure about that, but that's how you get tagged when I type your name. Where else do you have a presence? Supertestnet.org.
It's my website, and you can find all the links there. On YouTube, I'm High Level Bitcoin, and I release demo videos of my latest software there. On Telegram, I'm Super Testnet, all one word. So it's weird. On Nostr, there's a space. On Telegram, there's nothing separating the two words. And then there's and on Twitter, there's underscore. Different on every platform. That's good marketing. What else? I don't remember what else. Let me go check my website and see what else I've got.
Do you ever ask people for money?
Well, I sell stuff for money.
No, that's not what I mean, because people can create fake accounts with the underscore on Telegram or something and pretend it's you and ask for money, you know?
Yeah.
That actually happened to me with someone who used the 1 instead of the L in my name.
Okay, I think I reported them. I don't think I have enough followers for that yet. I think they start targeting you and you get like 15,000 followers, and I've only got like 8,000. So.
No, that's not how it works.
Oh, okay. What's their metric then?
I do have my suspicions because this happened to me twice, and one time they actually were able to extract some money from someone, but I think they come to conferences and they observe, you know, they look at you and they see who you're interacting with and who really trusts you, because the guy who actually got scammed and sent money, and I feel humbled, you know, I realized, okay, this guy trusted me this much that he was going to send money without asking questions, without even calling me or something. But that guy, I mean, I only hang out with him at conferences. We don't interact on Twitter or anything. So I guess it's social engineered in a way, so that they see, oh, this guy looks popular. Look, he's talking to this guy. Maybe that he's rich. I'm just going to pretend that I'm him and see where this goes. Because there was no way to connect the two of us, the guy who got scammed and myself.
Just to make it clear for everyone, if I ever want any money, what I'll do is I will pretend to be Vlad, and then I will ask you to send Vlad money.
Exactly.
So if someone does that, it's me, and you can feel free knowing it's. No, I'm just kidding.
Make me rich.
There you go.
So did you find your sources?
Oh yeah, it's the ones I gave. It was my Telegram, my Twitter, my Nostr, and my YouTube. So they're also, if you just go to supertestnet.org and click social, they're listed all right there.
Right, and you've asked me directly, and I will do this, to put the Chainalysis video in the description.
Thank you.
I'll also put your social links.
Anything else, or is that a wrap? Does that wrap it up? Any more questions from the audience?
To my real shame, I don't have any questions of myself. And there's someone who just said in the chat, I'm tinkering with BDK tonight. I'm not sure what BDK is, Bitcoin Development Kit.
Yeah, that's what it is. I haven't tinkered with it, but I think it's sounds good. I like developer kits, or actually I don't even use developer kits, but I think they're great for people who like them. So good on you. Try it out. Let me know what you think. I don't know why you let me know. I don't have anything to do with it, but in case you want to, let me know.
Thank you to the 1,400 people who watched this on live stream. It's really cool. I hope it was 1,400, because Twitter reports, I guess, everyone who joins, but doesn't count who actually stays. So those are the people who clicked. I'm not sure if they stayed, but I do hope that they did. And also thanks to the sponsors, once again, Layer 2 Labs, Citrea, Sideshift.ai, No Ones, and Huddling. Thank you, Super Testnet, for your time and everything that you do. I love your energy and I love your projects, and I look forward to seeing you in person at some conference.
See you soon. Bye-bye, everybody.